Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is May the 20th of 2020. I am Nick here along with Chris. We have manga to talk about today, as we usually do.
But first, a story, Nick.
A story?
Yep. I found...
Let me go get my teddy bear.
Okay. I found blue coffee in a house, Nick.
Blue coffee?
Yep, in a house. I can't give you more details than that. Rest assured, I was not breaking and entering. But I was in what could best be described as an abandoned house. Had very little in it, but it had one old container of coffee filled with blue powder. And I don't know if it was a drug I've just never seen before, or if that's what happens to this coffee when you just leave it alone for a decade or so.
Weren't the drugs in Breaking Bad blue because of the chemical process they used?
Yeah, that was meth though. I mean, you'd have to like really grind meth down to this kind of powder. Yeah, this was almost like a flour like consistency. Like that's the kind of powder it was, and it was all blue.
You see, Chris, you said blue coffee, and I didn't say anything at first because I was like, I don't know anything about coffee. Is he talking about a defunct brand of coffee, or does he mean physically blue coffee? And it turned out to be the much better option between those two.
Oh, how great would it have been? I'm like, Nick, I don't drink coffee, but I went inside a house and they had this really old brand of coffee. Isn't that neat?
You don't drink coffee at all, but you're like an aficionado. This is your thing.
I'm like, I know old brands of coffee. God, I wish there was a way for me to easily. I might post a picture on Twitter because I can't explain how blue and unnerving this coffee was. I have a picture. It's never gonna come out like in a clean way for people to see. I'll post a picture of it later. But right. There is blue coffee that I found in this house, and that was my excitement. That's what we kind of have to do during quarantine now, is we just find our own fun. You know, you just
going into abandoned houses.
You just wander into old houses and check out what's going. Again, I did not break and enter. I cannot explain all the circumstances around this, but it's important that we know if you leave coffee alone for a decade or so, I think it turns blue. That sounds like science, right?
That's science, yeah.
Yeah.
Replication, what's that?
Never heard of it.
We have 14 chapters to talk about this week.
I want to talk about 12. Let's cut out 2.
The ones that you would talk about?
Yeah. Oh, man, what a fucking asshole I would be if that was the case.
No breaks, Nick. Yeah!
Talk forever, monkey.
We have no One Piece, unfortunately. And that makes me sad because, just not to get too far ahead of myself, guys, not like manga in general this week. There were a couple chapters here and there. It's like, well, that was nice. But there were a lot that had me feeling disappointed or bored or made me feel nothing. And
you could
the overwhelming majority of the chapters we're going to talk about today. And now I've got to make them sound interesting. So here we go.
I was like, Nick, you could just say Mission Yozakura Family by name. No one's going to judge you for that.
That was one of the better ones.
Ooh, boy. We're in for quite a week if that's the case.
My Hero Academia, we will begin with number 271, Dark Cloud. This is also actually one of the better ones because, like, interesting character interactions actually happen and stuff. Although it wasn't an especially eventful chapter. We actually get a little bit of background to when Tokoyami abandoned the Fataxi in order to go and rescue Hawks. Now that I think about it, wholly unnecessary 2 pages. I know it's there to explain that Fat Gum went running after Tokoyami, and that's why he shows up at the battlefield later. But I don't know. It's really weird, and Fat Gum is making lots and lots of weird jokes in this chapter to kind of add a little bit of relief from the gruesome fates that people are suffering. So Tokoyami went in order to rescue Hawks. He's now squaring off against Dabi while Dark Shadow covers up Hawks, whose body is still smoldering. And Tokoyami's like, hey, because Dark Shadow's trying to tell him, this looks bad. And Tokoyami's like, yeah, I don't want to hear that right now. And Dark Shadow says, his back, it's gone.
Sounds
Not
like some rough
his
times.
wings are gone, his back is gone. So that's gruesome as fuck.
And then because there's some people who are speculating, like, I wonder if Hawks will just never be able to be a hero again. Maybe he won't die, but he won't be a hero. And I was like, no, he's either dead or he's going to be a hero again. And I wonder if Horikoshi resents this every day, but he created a character who could just rewind time and save everybody who would ever get hurt. So there's literally one or the other.
Well,
it's the same thing with Mirko. Like, just rewind her before everything got cut up and she's great again. Like,
yeah, thank God that character doesn't have any control over their abilities otherwise. So Dabi recognizes that Tokoyami is a UA student, and then he kind of jerks his thumb over towards Twice's body and says, hey, your man killed this guy. He was just running off to protect his friends, and he stabbed him in the back. So why are you here? Did you come to save people? Who are you trying to save? All these pros that you looked up to, they're assholes. They're murdering assholes. So why are you bothering to do that? So Hawks tries to get Tokoyami's attention, but he has been, flamed. So his voice is very weak. Tokoyami just says to Dabi that he is just concerned with protecting his mentor. Dabi launches a blast of fire at them, and Tokoyami has to dodge out of the way. He can't really fight back because fire, light, Dark Shadow is weakened by it. So he immediately concludes that he's got to get Hawks away, gotta get him some first aid. And Hawks manages to murmur to him that Dabi is going to keep talking. And sure enough, Dabi does keep talking. So Tokoyami whispers to Hawks, who thinks to himself, what's going on is that, he was talking so much that he didn't kill me properly, and now he's doing it again. And it's not because, he has the freedom to do that and he's just enjoying it. It's just that he's trying to buy time because his flames have become weaker. He can't fire his flames off continuously. And of course, we know this about Dabi, that he has a problem with sustaining his flames because they will burn him. So there's another weakness in his quirk. So Hawks doesn't explain all this to Tokoyami because he basically has to take one breath between every syllable. So he just tells him, go, leave now. So Tokoyami jumps over the ledge of the balcony that they're on while having Dark Shadow attack Dabi to distract him. Basically, Dark Shadow acts as a bungee cord to catch him on the rail so that they don't immediately fall to their deaths. And now that they're away from Dabi, there's no flames down there, so Dark Shadow can be up to full strength. And he starts to take off, and Dabi immediately goes dropping in, launching another burst of flames. And he just says to himself, well, he's got this big mana grin on his face. Yeah, I figured you would do this, so I made those last couple of blasts weaker so that I would have some energy left. But just as it looks like the flames are going to eclipse them all, a giant wave of ice crashes through everything. A giant wave of ice. It bursts through the wall of the building. We cut outside. Fat Gum sees a butt.
Yeah.
This is at least 40% of Mount Lady's character, if not more. She has a butt. Like, every time that she shows up, there are people checking out that ass. Even the universe.
So, I know, giant women is a fetish, and I can't tell, I don't feel like Horikoshi is sexualizing it. I don't feel like that's his fetish in the same way it's blindingly obvious every fetish hero has. But at the same time, her character does feel boiled down to just that fetish.
So Mount Lady is about to come crashing down into Fat Gum, who dodges out of the way and cries out, "Booty incoming."
Yep.
Booty incoming.
They were saved by the ass, Nick.
So, that giant wave of ice has knocked a whole bunch of heroes away. And we see that the ice, of course, has been summoned by Getten, the parka-wearing member of the League of Villains Alliance. Quirk. Names. It was a weird name, and I don't like it.
Paranormal Liberation Front.
Shh.
Had we seen Getten's face before?
Briefly, yes.
Okay.
I think in that big shot where it showed like the generals and stuff, they weren't wearing their hood.
Okay. Because in my mind, I was like, I don't know why you would like the parka hood up.
This is
with
my
like
reveal.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you're just like a normal looking person. I don't really.
Pretty much.
That's not like a big reveal. You'd have like a laser eye or something if you're gonna hold this up.
Takes the hood off. They just got a dog face. Oh, okay.
You know what? Hey, I mean, Kubo might have an issue with this because it does kind of feel like you're infringing on him.
All right, so now that they've got a dog face, we know that they've got the worst quirks.
Yeah, their Bankai is they make a bigger version of themselves that hurts them.
And every time you hit it, it kills them.
Oh, why is
I made myself a bigger target. Why?
Why is it such a glaringly obvious weakness? And I like that people try to excuse it because they're like, he also has the special ability that normally, because when someone's Bankai is destroyed, it's destroyed forever, but his isn't like that. I was like, yeah, to trade off of the fact that if you stab his giant Bankai in the arm, you stab him in the arm too. That's like a cool point.
Hey, I just threw this one random rock at that huge giant thing, and it hit its head, and then Komura just like fell over with a concussion. It was amazing.
Oh, it's not like to scale either. So if you throw a big rock at the arm, you just like
climb up. You just climb up the thing and punch it in the nads, and Komura goes, "Oh,
oh Jesus, why?"
Oh no! Please stop punching it! No!
God, why is my Bankai so lame?
Square centimeter of my balls being punched individually.
Oh, poor Kumamori.
So, the main on a macro scale, as a result of getting summoning this huge ice wave, it has bought the Paranormal Liberation Front some time. And it seems as though someone is coming through the wall to attack Gang Orca. I think that's what's going on. Because they emerge to what appears to be Gang Orca's blind side, I guess. I don't really know.
Yeah, it's a little. I would assume they're coming after Gang Orca, but who knows, I guess. I mean, we can see in the panel right before it that Gang Orca's not alone.
Yeah.
So...
The point, the general point is supposed to be that Getten is kind of rallying the troops with this, so they're kind of pushing back on this front. However, a side effect of this is because they summoned that huge ice wave, Dabi has not been able to finish off Tokoyami and Hawks. Tokoyami gets away with him, and he has big old tears in his eyes as he cries to Hawks, like, "I know your hands are dirty. You were doing the right thing, so don't go dying on us." Then we cut to inside the building where Dark Shadow had been sent and attacked Redestro. Redestro is trying to get some spare legs so that he can get back up on his feet, and someone calls to him and just points to Gigantomachia, who has stood up. And Gigantomachia sniffs the air and says, "Master sent." So... obviously, what's going on here is that, the pendulum is swinging back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as though on all fronts, all the villains are starting to push back. We've had, Dabi cripple Hawks. We have Shigaraki seemingly waking up. Gigantomachia is now becoming active and could join the battle soon. So the heroes have been on the winning side of things for quite a while now. So now it's time for them to start suffering some blows themselves. Okay.
All right.
Action.
Good chapter.
Scene 112. Fame. Something spotlight. I don't know the words of that. Fame.
You know, I admire the dedication to the bit. Once you got like the word in, you're like, I don't know this song.
No lyrics at all. I don't even know the chorus. Fame. I want to live forever. I want to something fire, lights. I don't know.
You know, all those definitely could be right. Every single one of those you could be nailing.
So, we see Kay's school friends making their way to school, and they're surrounded by advertising that features Kay because she is getting so famous, and advertisements featuring her are everywhere. Then we see some random people who are, kind of walking on their way to school, and a couple of them seem to spot Kay, and they're like, "Was that her?" Oh, and then it cuts to her actually, and she's like just dashing past everyone so that she doesn't get bothered, basically. And at that moment when she arrives at school, gets in through the school gates, is also when Yoshioka and Hina arrive, and they're like, "Why are you running?" And she's like, "Yeah, my disguises never work, so I just run past people now. Gotta do what you gotta do, I guess." But of course, people at school recognize Kay, and so they're like, "Oh, that's Kay Unagi," and like they're just kind of clearing a giant path for Kay and her friends to walk through. While Yoshioka kind of comments, she's kind of being pushed ahead, isn't she? She's kind of being pushed away from us, and they kind of try to just strike up like a more casual conversation and just talk like nothing's going on. But the loudest camera phone in the world goes off. Either that or literally nobody in the school is raising their voice above a whisper because they're like, "We don't want anyone to notice that we're talking about Kei Yonagi, even though everyone is clearly staring at her."
Yeah, well, you had someone, they got that giant Kodak camera. And it's just like the ones that make the loudest noise.
Used like their last Polaroid, so now you can hear it rewinding. Not Polaroid, the disposable cameras that would rewind them. That's what I meant. Anyway, so people look around and are like, "Did someone just take a picture?" And Yoshio gets really pissed off, and she's like, "Who did that? Have you ever heard of portrait rights? Celebrities have them too." And it's like, you're in a public space, guys. Like, they can take pictures of her if they want.
Yeah, I was like, it's kind of weird to get this upset. I understand like the idea of like the privacy of my friend is being invaded, but I mean they're like in the schoolyard and someone I was like, it's not like, oh, I caught her while she was like in the dressing room or like eating or something like that. It's like, I don't know, she's like walking.
Yeah. That is how most paparazzi photos get taken. Like, seriously. And also, this guy is just taking out his phone and in this chapter expresses literally no intents of like doing anything with it beyond just like having it. So,
yeah, he's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I can't believe I get to go to school with this famous person. This is nice."
Portrait rights referred to. I actually had to look this up because I thought that I knew what it was, but I had to make sure. Portrait rights refers to you can't use a photo of a celebrity and say that they're endorsing your product unless they are actually endorsing your product, basically. So it's like, I mean, he's a first-year high schooler.
So I can't tell everybody. I can't throw up a picture of Michael Jordan and tell everybody Michael Jordan thinks this is the best podcast in all of the internet.
Not unless it's a parody.
Oh, so if I do a funny voice then for Michael Jordan, then it works. All right, we're still.
If you have like a picture of Michael Jordan and you have like like South Park animation of his mouth bouncing up and down, and you're like, "I am Michael Jordan, and
I am French Michael Jordan, and I would like to say this is the best podcast on the internet." Oh, oui.
So yeah, you can do that.
All right, cool. We got a sponsor for later on the episode.
That's right.
I would like to tell you about the Red Shadow Legends 95 champions.
Download this app and you will get the free money.
50,000 silver for your first download.
Will that make me actually want to play it more? Probably not.
Almost certainly not, unless you love the ads in your face.
So anyway, Kei tells Yoshioka,
I'm gonna be back real quick.
It's fine. It's this happens all the time. Calm down. Dude who took the photo is like, oh, awesome. I get to go to school with Kei Yonagi. This is great. And at that moment, Ryoma arrives and is like, who the hell are you? What's your name? What class are you in? And Hina tries to stop things from like becoming violent. And eventually the guy says like, I'm Tajima. And Ryoma says, Yonagi, Tajima of class 1-2 wants to take a photo with you. So we cut to inside the assembly hall immediately after that. And the principal, I guess, looks around and is like, why are only like a fifth of the students here? Where is everyone for the opening ceremony? And it turns out the Kei is outside. She's answering various questions that all the students are asking her. And so she's like, no, I'm not in an intimate relationship with Akira. And Ogami's not a violent guy. And some person's like, no way, I read it on the internet. Which is the most 14-year-old thing to say, honestly. But I read it on the internet. Are you sure that you're not banging him? And she's like, well, I mean, I could call him. Do you want me to call him and ask him?
She's like, I think my perception of reality is still working, but maybe it's not, so I guess I should talk to him and confirm that.
And someone's like, I don't think that's a good idea if you do that. And she says, but nobody believes me. Which has got to be a frustrating thing, honestly.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
It's Kei's typical, very blunt, bizarre behavior, but amongst students who think that she's cool and famous, as opposed to commercial crew who are just like, I just want to shoot this video and go home. Please stop doing research about what kind of water this is. So Kei's friends are watching this from a short distance away, and Ryoma explains himself by saying, there's tension when people are, keep an awkward distance between themselves. So, it's cool. At least it's better if things are just like this. And Yoshioka's like, you'd know about awkward distances. And Ryoma's like, I'm going to punch you. So they're friends.
Yeah, they're good buddies.
A teacher comes out and scolds everyone because, they're not actually attending the opening ceremony. So everyone realizes what they're doing and rushes off. And then there's just, a little bit of, conversation between Kei and her friends saying, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of new friends and invite them to the club and we can shoot a new movie together and we're going to have fun. So, and then we just have a little brief narration saying, yeah, Kei is, now starting her final year of high school. So, yay, she still has a little bit of a normal life. Kuroyama apparently doesn't like this, I guess, because we cut to him. Who he is talking with the producer, of course, after their discussion last time. And so he says, like, do you just intend to have her miss school until you start filming? And Kuriyama doesn't say anything. So he's like, I mean, you're not making sense, Kuriyama. It's like you don't want Yonagi getting famous. And Kuriyama says, that's not true, but there's no need to take unnecessary risks. See, I'm just upset that Kei didn't go to Vietnam and film people whose babies were... Gonna have to keep that in mind every time that Kuriyama does anything from now on. You just remember the speech like, "Can you go into war zones and film people and not help them because they're asking you to film them instead while they're dying?"
I'm 17. This is a very big rude awakening. I'm not sure I just wanted to do commercials. I don't know why I'm getting this dropped on me.
The main thing that comes out of this scene as they're sitting down for a meeting and the other people for the meeting start showing up is that this is going to be Kuriyama's first major production and Kei Unagi's first starring role, but it's not going to be a movie. Instead, it's going to be a TV show, a historical TV drama with Kei in the star role. So I'm actually really looking forward to this because we haven't seen, a TV show on Actage before. It'd be nice to have like a recurring thing going on with Kei as opposed to she did a play and then she did a movie and then she did a commercial. And I think back when we covered Skip Beat, I think that the most interesting stuff that was done in that was whenever it came to TV shows. So,
Yeah, could be interesting. chapter itself is kind of meh for me. I'm not a big fan of like Kay's school friends, so that side of things is kind of bad to me. But yeah, we'll see. This could be an intriguing turn of events.
I'm glad that Kay has a place she can go to just be happy still. So
I hope that she gets on set and they're like, you're playing this historical person, and
but I'm not that person.
and she's like,
call up that historical person.
I need you to talk to that descendants to tell. They're like, you want me to talk to Mark Anthony's descendants? I don't know if there is. Like, there's not like
one. We'll call up some random person in Greece, and that should. Chances are they have a little bit of a connection there.
Yeah. So it looks like she's going to be doing something before that movie. Kind of, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things. I guess they can keep adding stuff as they need to. It is one of those things where I'm like, are they speed tracking to an end here? Because it sounds like that movie's the end of the series. Like
the big project that Kuriyama wants to do
with
all
the
Kay and all the people that he's kind of developing.
Yeah.
For this and that. Possibly. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
Let's talk about Boruto.
Yeah, Ninja Man.
6. True Identity. Big color spread page for Kashin Koji. It's fire everywhere. He looks very Fire Nation-y with all the red clothing that he's got, and the logo's on fire behind him. Whoosh.
He has a lot of fire powers. Didn't use him today, but he has a lot of fire powers.
No fire at all featured in this chapter. None. He's trying to kill Jigen. They start fighting. This is a very weird chapter because they're fighting, and at different points during their fight, keep in mind, Naruto and Shikamaru and Sasuke and Amado and everyone else in that room is watching this fight happen via a spy frog.
Wow, I didn't have an issue until you said, I was like, they are watching it, which does make the way this conversation flows much worse. In my mind, I was like, oh, they don't really know what's happening. So this is like that thing where we're kind of seeing somebody try to do it, but we're also hearing the other person and they kind of explain these details and things like that. Meanwhile, this is like a great UFC fight is happening, and some dude's like, all right, so this is how you...
Let me explain what the origin of fighting is.
You're like, I mean, I guess.
So, that's going on. And Amado is like talking about stuff, is like, well, you see... ordinarily, Koji and I, we were just playing at being members, but we want to take him down, and this is a big opportunity for us because Jigen was severely drained in the battle against you, so he's trying to finish him off right now. And Kashin Koji had just said, like, my reason for existing is killing you, and Jigen's like, you're a pathetic man. No matter which way you put it, in the end, you're nothing more than a tool being used by Amado. And Kashin Koji says, well, yeah, I'm fine with being a tool. That's what shinobi are. Rubbish, because he's very British apparently. Kashin Koji spits some fire, and Jigen absorbs it with the karma. Kashin Koji uses toad oil bombs, which are...
They're explosive.
I know, there's a spray of liquid that gets all over him, and after it lands on him, there are toads on him, and then they explode into fire.
Yeah, like, come on, you have a couple of those at home, right? Like in your sink.
Exploding fire frogs.
Yeah, in case there's like a bunch of like some mosquitoes that are really annoying you. You throw this down, the toads pop up, they eat the mosquitoes, but then to clean up the toads, they explode afterwards, and thus you have no more issues, Yeah. Otherwise, you'd have to get a snake to eat the frogs. And then you have the snakes, you gotta get a bunch of mongooses. The mongooses are problems, so you got to get like a tiger. You kind of escalate it. Mongoose to tiger is kind of a big jump. There's no getting rid of tiger. You just have to accept that you have a new backyard friend and keep it.
Hope that he's friendly.
Yeah, you have to regularly feed them. It's very, very important you do that part.
Don't feed them by hand ever. Kawaki, observing the fight, says, raising the thermal power with oil won't matter. It still won't stand up to karma. And sure enough, Jigen shortly afterward absorbs the flames with karma. So Naruto thinks to himself, the way that masked guy fights, it's like ... He used frogs. He fights like Jiraiya. That's the point. He used frogs. Like,
Maybe he's Jiraiya.
He either fights like Jiraiya or he fights like Naruto. These are the only two people who use frogs. So they're fighting. There is a really cool shot where Jigen shrinks himself down and just throws chakra rods into one of Kashin Koji's Shadow Clone's eyes, and you see the rods just sticking out of the holes in his mask, which is really cool.
Is it cool? I had a moment. All right, I guess maybe just there was a moment where I was like, the ability to shrink yourself doesn't seem nearly as cool. Like, I guess the idea of like a strong silent type like Jigen doing it was like, I don't know. This feels like something like a slimy, underhanded villain would be very like cool with, but like the idea of like, haha, I'm small now. I guess it's the shot later on where he like jumps into a dude's ear. I'm like, this feels like a children's book. Like a Blue's Clues episode. They're like, and they spin inside the ear, and then there's a whole lesson about how the ear works, which I could use. Not entirely certain how it works. I know there's a drum in there, but who's playing it? Boom, nailed it. All right, Nick, joke landed. Continue.
You lost me about 5 turns ago, so... Jigen is like, it seems you are really serious about turning on me, Kashin Koji. I do hope you're prepared to die. And Kashin Koji says, that's my line, Lord Jigen. Or rather, Otsutsuki Ishiki. What? The guy who's really an Otsutsuki is really an Otsutsuki? Oh, well, don't worry, guys. There's this big, long explanation that really comes down to really just kind of like very small differences that nobody should actually care about in the grand scheme of things. Well, this guy was a bad guy who was going to turn into an Otsutsuki. Instead, he's a bad guy who's going to turn into an Otsutsuki. That's what it really actually boils down to. But
it's amusing because I'm playing a lot of Phoenix Wright and recently, and there's a moment where like when someone's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, that it kind of opens up everything. So the moment Sasuke's like, wait a minute, didn't you say that like what happens once karma's completely used up? They're like, oh, well then it's just gone. He's like, but that doesn't make sense because he should already have been used up by now and he still has it. You're like, oh man, this is gonna open things up. They're like, no, he couldn't use it on him at the time, so he jumped in his ear and he mind controlled him and then put it on him afterwards, and then it'll take effect. You're like, what a weird like jump around we had to do to explain all this.
So Otsutsuki Ishiki is the other Otsutsuki who came to Earth with Kaguya of forever ago. As I mentioned earlier, this is Amato talking. Their objective was to plant the divine tree and harvest its chakra fruit, but then a problem arose. Kaguya suddenly turned against Ishiki. I don't know why. You'll find out later, I guess. But the important thing is that it happened. Caught off guard, Ishiki suffered enough damage to be on the verge of death, but he took over the body of a novice monk who happened to be nearby. That unfortunate man was Jigen. And then he marked him with karma. And before I answer what happened then, hey, Naruto, you should give me asylum. I'm formally requesting it, and I want all the paperwork brought to me and stuff before I remove the explosive device from Shikadai, and I want to sign that. And Naruto's like, yeah, okay. Anyway, what Sasuke was saying was actually pretty accurate. Anyway, I have 5 more paragraphs to explain this thing while a fight is going on in the background between 2 people who are trying to murder each other.
It is.
It's on the TV.
It is so strange once you brought that up. I didn't realize it because I did take note of it when I first read the chapter. I was like, oh, they're watching this? It's kind of interesting because I guess I just forgot from last time. But it is very amusing that they have this little whole explanation while this is going on. And it makes the end of the chapter even weirder. Because it's like, ha, I used real fire to actually hurt you. And like, it looks like it's kind of effective. And then Amato's like, now I'll tell you how to actually kill one of these people. And you're like, I mean,
it looks like he's doing a good job of it.
Yeah, he's like, I guess just watch the TV, actually. I guess they're actually, he's been doing a really good job of showing what you need to do.
Amato's just like one of those guys who just like is never interested in watching TV, so he just has to talk during it. And
Oh, he's the worst. Okay, I thought endangering a child was the worst quality he has, but if he talks during television, he's even worse than I thought.
I talk during television too, but I at least talk about what's actually on TV. But so he explains that whenever the karma is fully, acclimated or whatever, then the real Otsutsuki emerges. And then we get this explanation of like, well, you see, he didn't just put the karma in his body. He used his shrinking powers to shrink down and turn into a yerk and go into Jigen's body through his ear and absorb nutrients from his body like a parasite and control his brain.
Yep.
See, whenever you just open your series up to ninjutsu came from space aliens, then all bets are off and weird shit happens. I can't even question any of this anymore. Sure, he turned into an alien parasite and controlled his brain. Fine. There is literally no limit to what can happen. There are lightsabers in Naruto now. You can't question any of how any jutsu works ever again.
It's interesting because you're like, oh, it's starting to become a lot more obvious how you're going to try to be like, yeah, Samurai 8 and Boruto take place in the same universe. Also, I love the panel where he goes in the ear because it's so unelegant. There might as well have been like a big plunk sound effect, like plunk, as he just hops into the ear. It's so lame.
It takes over his body. It's controlling his brain, and just a little whoosh. So Jigen, or Ishiki controlling Jigen, is fighting Kashin Koji, and they're fighting, and Kashin Koji summons a swamp jutsu thing to make the entire ground underneath them all glorpy, and it starts to swallow up Jigen, and he's like, I've got you now, and then Naruto's like, well, hold on, he looks like he might kill him right now, but let's talk a lot more. So, he says, Jigen's got the karma then, so why doesn't Ishiki just revive it already then? And Amado says, well, the most important factor in betting a karma is the right target, the vessel, and Jigen was just someone who happened to be nearby. Ishiki's chakra was too massive for him, and Jigen's body is inadequate to be the vessel, so a new vessel was being repaired instead, and that's Kawaki, of course. Anyway, a fight's still going on, so Jigen is still stuck in that swamp, and Kawaki's like, bah! And Jigen tries to get out of the ground, and Kashin Koji reveals that there is a giant sigil in the ground, a giant ritual circle, and he casts a summoning jutsu, and fire emerges. And so Jigen's just like, whatever, more fire. I'll use karma to absorb it. Heh! Why can't I absorb them? And Kashin Koji says, this is not Katon. I summoned real fire from faraway flaming mountains. They are splendid natural flames, not chakra derived, so you can't absorb them with karma. So, basically, now this does it's real fire naturally occurring, therefore it's not chakra powered, therefore it can't be counteracted by an anti-chakra thing. This does bring up a point. If you set something on fire with chakra, at what point does it become real fire and not chakra fire? Or does it ever become real fire?
Never.
Anyway. So Amado is like, yeah, they're fighting. Anyway, so Jigen's going to kill him, I guess. It's because I'm going to keep on and going and tell you how to actually kill an Otsutsuki. Because the chapter ends with Ishiki he's just got fire everywhere all over him. So he's not gonna die.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not the worst ending of a chapter this week. We'll get to that briefly. But sort of an odd end of the chapter when you're like, so are you gonna just explain what we're watching, or is this not the way to do it? If so, why was this perfectly created soldier to kill Ishiki be bad at? Like, I don't know if he's just gonna explain what we're seeing on TV. Which I guess he could do. Maybe things get more complicated than like, oh, you set him on fire. Like, all right, seems kind of easy. So I don't know.
You shoot him with this gun.
Yeah, basically it's like, hey, you just don't use shocker. Like, oh, so if I just throw like 100 grenades at him, he'll just blow up. Like, oh yeah, like everything in this world would if
So
you
what
just
you're saying
shoot him
is-
alone.
So what you're saying is, whatever thing we use to attack them, it has to be something that is not chakra derived, like a weapon of some sort. And suddenly there's 10 comes bursting in. My time has come.
They're like, no, we invented lightsabers. Sorry, your time actually passed.
Oh.
Are you good at throwing lightsabers? No, that's the one thing I'm bad at throwing.
I can't throw. I can throw a person. I can throw a person holding a lightsaber. Nah, it's just a step too far.
Sorry. It's gonna be too cluttering. You know? Don't worry. We're gonna have something big for you to do just around the corner. Just trust us.
Hey Sasuke, remember that one time that you transformed into a shuriken and I threw the real shuriken with you as the fake shuriken behind it, and then you anti-transformed? Yeah, way simpler plan than 1010's dumb throw person holding a lightsaber plan.
Aw, poor 1010.
So yeah, this was very weird, very awkwardly paced. I mean, like, would it have killed you to put the discussion bubbles over the images of them fighting to make it more interesting, at least, instead of having the very weird pacing issue?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Let's
Spy
just
Family.
speed through Spy Family, Nick, and then you don't have to talk for a little bit.
Spy Family Chapter 27. Anya took the midterms, and we don't see any of how that went. We just see the tests are being dropped off in a vault to make sure that nobody messes with them.
Oh, this was Anya's midterms. I thought they were my midterms because they came back average, which is what I always scored. So it makes sense that the manga wasn't about my scores. Huh. Quarantine brains got me real weird, Nick.
So we find out that Lloyd has decided that he needs to cheat on Anya's behalf because he is dead certain that she has failed. And we see a little image of Anya going, "Hey!" So that's his evidence for thinking that she failed, I assume. So he's going to infiltrate the vault in order to just change her scores and make sure that she gets, passing grades and stuff. So he's in disguise, and he's like, all right, I'm going to infiltrate, and I'm going to make sure that I don't arouse any suspicions at the school after I'm done. I have to be flawless in this plan. And then he looks over and he sees a very obviously shady guy wearing a straw hat. He's sneaking in and he's like, "Jeh, jeh, jeh, jeh." He's like, that guy could not be acting more suspiciously if he tried. And we get a little bit of narration from this guy's perspective saying, "My codename is Daybreak. I'm an elite spy. My mission is to change the midterm test answers. How did I get my codename? Well, they say this country's been infiltrated by a master spy named Twilight, who works for the West. So I named myself Daybreak in anticipation of the day he and I would match wits. The daybreak of the East, bring the end of the twilight of the West." He's such a nerd.
This dude is so dumb and stupid, and he's my favorite character in all of Spy Family. Now, fuck the dog. I want Daybreak.
Daybreak does 7 sequential combat rolls and ends on a pose. And Lloyd is like, what the fuck is that guy doing? He's going to ruin my plan to alter the test scores. He nearly runs flat into a security patrol and then just acts like a sign on a lamppost.
What's very amusing about this chapter to me is it kind of destroys part of the premise of the series.
Yes.
That, Lloyd couldn't just break in and find the person he needs to and get to them that way, that he has to, go through this whole elaborate, my child needs to become an A student so I can meet them naturally. Meanwhile, this fucking goober is just getting past every level of security by pure dumb luck.
Well, and also with a little bit of help from Lloyd, I guess.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So he gets past the guards who just don't spot him hanging from a lamppost, I guess. And then Lloyd's like, all right, well, I need to remove him before I get into the building. Perhaps I could sneak up on him while he's focused on picking the lock. And Daybreak, sure enough, is like, the door's locked. Breaks the window and reaches in to unlock it from the inside. So Lloyd does a couple of things to try and cover his tracks. Daybreak very nearly gets spotted because he spots a security guard inside and nearly knocks a statue over. So the guy's like, "Oh, you must be one of the faculty, right? I'll need to see some ID." And Daybreak's like, I'm from, information sciences. Remember, I'm that guy, the famous one."
Oh, the famous one. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, now we'll go right in, yeah. So he keeps on acting suspicious. The guy's about to call the police. So Lloyd comes in. He's like, "Hey, you dropped this ID on the ground, didn't you? Over there, it must belong to you." And Daybreak's like, "I don't know anything about no IDs." "You're Mr. Brown, the newly hired professor, right?" "Oh yeah."
Yeah, this is your ID that you would need to get inside the vault. Like,
"But it's not my wallet."
I'm shocked nobody's shown that done that meme yet.
So Lloyd hands off the ID to him, and when he does, he sees that the guy's just got the details of his mission just written down on his hand, like The Rock's promo notes. And so Lloyd's acting like a teacher too. They go on inside, and so Lloyd's got to be thinking like, all right, well, the student registration numbers they had written down in his hand, those are the Desmond brothers. And of course, we see Damien. We also see his older brother, but his older brother has his back to the viewers, so no reveal yet. It's like whenever we saw, the warlords in One Piece.
You just saw a figure.
So Damien gets to the vault, and he's like, all right, I copied on the passcode number for number. Here we go. Oh no, did I copy it down wrong? So he's like, I'm gonna go take a leak. You go ahead. And Lloyd just thinks to himself as he goes and waits for him to open up the vault. It's like, there is no bathroom in this entire building.
I just love him too. Every level of him knowing he's like, this motherfucker is just walking away. So the moment I open the door, he can just smack me in the back of the head and come in.
And of course, as soon as he opens the door, sneak attack! He says out loud, "Thanks for the help, more. I'm back."
I love that he shit talks. It's a dude who's so helplessly unself-aware that he's just like, "Gotcha, nerd!" Bam!
So he goes to the answers, and he's like, "Oh man, the boxes are locked too." Eventually, I guess he gets the boxes open, and then he's like, "All right, mission accomplished." And then he poses. He's like, "I tremble in my own genius. I may well have surpassed Twilight himself. Sorry, Twilight. Pork dinner? Nah, I'm gonna grab a steak on the way home." And Lloyd's just like, "Stop bragging and leave. Just let me accomplish my mission." So he's like, "When people hear what I pulled off, I'll have more clients than I'll know what to do with. I might even get my name in the papers." "Well, no, not in the papers. I am a spy after all. I guess no one will ever really know who I am." "I know. I'll just sign my name in the doctor for marketing."
I love, and it's even like Lloyd's like, "Holy shit!" You're like, he can't help himself. He's like, "You're the dumbest spy."
Nicole and I are watching Deep Space Nine together, and one of the recurring characters on the show, my favorite character in like all of Star Trek, is Garrick, who was a spy before he was outcast by his people. And he has like regular meals with one of the main characters on the show, Bashir, who gets this holodeck program so that he can go and play James Bond. And so Garrick happens to show up while he's playing James Bond. It's like, this is like the most unrealistic portrayal of being a spy ever. I wish that instead of, like a competent person like Bashir, that he'd been stuck with just this guy like
Just
every single step of the way. I'll sign my name so that people know that I'd been able to pull off this mission. So of course Lloyd just literally just gets up. He's like, "No, what are you doing?" So he's like, "Oh no, I didn't see anything. I won't say a word. Spare me, please." He's like, "God, am I gonna have to kill this guy?" And Daybreak's just like, "What are you talking about, dude? Tell everyone I did this. The world must know."
It's so I don't know why. It's like just the right level of absurdity to it. That every step, you're like, oh my god, he's gonna kill. He's gonna try to go after this person I'm impersonating now. I might have to kill him. He's like, what do you mean, dude? Why don't you tell everybody about this? I want everyone to know what a big deal I am.
It's like, make sure that you tell everyone about this and make it sound good. Make it sound like, maybe I went through walls or caught a bullet between my fingers. But don't share any details about the mission I just pulled off. Those are secret. Bye! Combat rolls away. So Lloyd checks on the work the Daybreak did first. He's like, all right, clearly I've got to make sure that nobody discovers that he forged these. But he realizes, he wasn't hired by the Desmonds. He changed their grades so that they would get failing scores. So possibly the client is one of Donovan's business or political rivals. So he's like, all right, well, I've got to, revert these back, and I can still make out what he erased. And I'll, of course, erase his fucking signature. And he sees that, both of the Desmonds are exceptional students, especially the older one. He barely got a single question wrong. So this older brother of Damien's is really being built up. In stark contrast, let's take a look at Anya's test. He flips through the papers. He gets a shocked expression on his face, narrows his eyes. We cut ahead to 5 days later. The midterm results are out. Damien did really well. He's 11th in the class. Had one of the top 2 scores in history. So his friends are congratulating him. They're like, you gotta get a stellar star. Good job. And then we cut over to Anya and Becky. And Becky's like, all right, well, I got 46. That's still pretty good. Hey, Anya, where'd you land? I guess and so one of Damien's friends is like, better count from the bottom. It'll be quicker. But Anya's just
very right.
Yeah. Anya's like, and she thinks to herself, the truth is, I already know how I did on the test because I read Papa's mind after he snuck into the school. And she's got this confident look on her face. And Becky's like, oh, there you are, Anya. You're 213th out of 228 students. And she's like, oh, don't feel bad, Anya. You'll do better next time. And of course, but Damien observes, well, at least it doesn't look like you failed in any one subject. And that's why Anya's happy. She's like, that's right. I didn't fail a single test. And because of me, Papa's mission survives for another day. And we actually cut to her memory of Lloyd arriving from the school and him patting her on the head and being like, nice work, I'm proud of you. It's like, aw.
Very sweet.
So, very nice. And I really do appreciate this way of going about things. Anya didn't cheat. Lloyd didn't cheat. She just worked really hard, and she wasn't suddenly an incredible student, but her hard work paid off. So that's really nice.
Yep.
She arrives home, has the test scores, and he's like, I did great on the test. And Lloyd's like, you nearly failed every single subject, because she's in the 30s on like everything, so don't be proud of yourself. And he's like, but I thought, it's like, no, I'm going to have to be stricter with you in order for you to do better. But I expect her to fail in at least one subject. This is an impressive result by her standards, I suppose. Her efforts have kept the operation alive, if only barely. Maybe I should be grateful for that. And so that's nice. So, of course, they've got to, work harder from here. But it's a nice little thing that happened. And then we cut, in the final panel, over to Daybreak, who is being blamed by his client because he failed in his mission. He's like, what? No, I didn't fail. I did exactly what No, you can't fire me. My legend has only just been born.
I love Daybreak. He's the best. What a treasure.
I am a little bit disappointed that we didn't actually see any of the test process. We just kind of but I do understand why, because, it was to leave the mystery and to see how Anya actually did without it. And I do just appreciate the very straightforward approach. Just like, she did okay.
Yep.
She did not do great, but she did well enough, all in her own. So,
all right, let's talk, Nick, about Eden Zero, Chapter 94, Shiki versus Draken. Of course, it wouldn't be an Eden Zero chapter in the past 2 months. We did talk about the character file at the front. This time, it's about Sister Ivory. Her big thing is healing. She's very good at healing. It's kind of insulting because they kind of really go in big on it, where it's things she likes, torture, things she doesn't like, things that can't be healed. I'm like,
it's the lamest one yet, and the special bonus one is healing. It's it's not sadism or anything.
It's at that point you're like, why wasn't Witch's like ether power or well, I guess she did have ether power on there. So I guess maybe that's why they didn't. But it is weird like healing is it grouped in with ether power or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. She also has apparently her lock screen is a picture of Rebecca, which that feels like maybe it's a consensual picture, but if it's not, that feels very weird.
Yeah, we just talked about portrait rights, Chris.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we open up, Shiki and Draken, they went down a big hole, and oh god, I can't remember her name.
Fake Lamilia.
Amira, that was it, Amira. She's like, all right, just let them go down there. They're going to keep Draken busy. We need to get over to his life support tank, and all of us play an important role here. Rebecca, you're very important, so you can't be down there with Draken. He needs you, so we need to keep you as far away from him as possible. We need Wise and Pino to take her with the device. Sabir is going to take us there. Happy will be the bodyguard. Mosco's like, what role do I get to play? And he's like, nothing. I guess he'll just go around saying Moscow. And he's like, you're starting to really weigh on my nerves. And he said that earlier. And he also says it later. I guess it's a new character gimmick of his. Because him saying Moscow isn't enough. Or maybe this is some idea that maybe the timelines are changing. I can't tell if this is intentional or not. So, I don't know. He's just saying it a lot now. We cut over to Shiki and Draken, who are having their big fight. Draken turns his hand to iron and just punches Shiki in the head. And then he kind of shows that his powers are absurdly broken. So, like, Shiki does his whole, like, I'm going to grab a bunch of rocks and I'm going to shoot them forward to you with gravity. And Draken's like, oh, I didn't think you could do that. But I just turned your rocks into explosives. Boom, boom, boom. Just to, like, causes a bunch of explosions. He's like, now the ground's explosions. Now the ground's electricity. Like, what the fuck? You're like, dude, this dude's ridiculously strong. And basically, like, he's beating Shiki up, basically.
Yeah, but then immediately he loses all the momentum he built up by trying to do a Bond one-liner, and it completely falls on its face.
Yeah, so Shiki basically, he says something like, oh, you can fly. And Shiki's like, no, I fell onto the ceiling because I'm using gravity. He's like, fell onto the ceiling? Oh, you're definitely going to fall all the way to hell. And you're like, Kevin Dunn shouldn't be allowed to write promos, guys. He's just not good at it.
I don't think that he's got. I don't think that she's hot, so she can't be a wrestler. I know everything about wrestling.
We cut over to Homura, and I imagine somewhere out there's a person who is actually tangibly angry at this chapter or at this page.
Get in the bikini.
Yeah, because she starts by being like, oh, right, I have an app that changes my garments. I was very close to just putting on one of those dance outfits. And there's someone out there who's just like, I want to see her more in a dancing outfit.
Well, don't have a little hope, guys.
Yeah, she does.
She said, I might try one on later.
Yeah, she's very excited to wear one. So she talks a little bit with Lobelia. Basically, it's just like, hey, I don't really know everything about what's going on here, but we're going to get you some shelter anyway. And by the way, I'm a friend of Rebecca. She came here to save you. So I'm going off. I'm meeting with my companions, for I wield my sword in defense of my friends.
I fight for my friends.
Mm-hmm. And we cut over to Sylph. She's crying on the ground because she got beat. And her little emotion suppressor is like, ooh, fatal error. Can't. So she's just saying, oh, help me, brother. And yeah, she's like a turtle who fell on her back. We cut over to, I presume this is the life support chamber. It seems very fancy and looks like a life support chamber. And they're like, oh, so this is the life support chamber, huh? And she's like, oh yeah, that's not all. There's a secret behind this device that you'll never believe. But before they can do it, there's a bunch of wind and it cuts life knives. And who should be there but Jin? And he's all powered up and stuff. And he's like, I'm going to beat you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, he's very strong. Moscow is like, Jin, my buddy. Remember we were part of that group on Gilst? And he goes up to like hug him, and Jin just blows him away with wind. And Moscow almost pushes his button, but he doesn't. And Weiss is just like, all right, forget about Moskoy for now. And Moskoy's like, you're starting to get on my nerves. And the chapter just ends. It's the weirdest, goofiest ending to this chapter. Is like, rule of threes, we got the third. Moskoy says, you're starting to weigh on my nerves of the chapter. Like, okay.
So, this chapter,
blows.
Yeah.
Hard.
So
I thought we were gonna do the one word apiece.
This is just like the embodiment of like why I don't like most of Eden Zero, which is that it comes down to Hero has all these assorted characters as part of the main cast who are literally just there so that he can do one gag with them over and over and over again. And now he's like got this big giant guy who is worthless and is called worthless by one of the other characters essentially. And it would have been funny if it had just ended at Amira just saying like, I don't know, I guess that you'll, say Moscow in order to provide some comic levity, I guess. And that's it. But instead it's like there's more stuff with him and he tries and like he's doing this stuff like you're weighing on my nerves. It's like nobody cares, Moscow. Go away.
You suck. No one likes you. Look, I assume...
Why did they bring him on this mission?
Well, that's like that feels like part of it too, where you're just like, there's this big thing about how Rebecca jumped backwards in time, and it really doesn't feel like they've utilized that gimmick at all. Because at some point you're like, is there a reason they brought Moskoy along? And maybe there is. I mean, obviously he's a Deus Ex Machina that just will perpetually exist. Why does he have a belly button that says "Don't push" with a button there? Surely one day they're going to press it. He's going to turn into a super ultra mega form. He'll probably be hot then too, because that's the way Hero does these things. But it's one of those things you're like, no one knows why he's here now. And we just added a new character trait of his because this is like 90% more talking than he's done. So it's just a very weird time to be like, let's expand on Moskoy's character comedically exclusively though. Just comedically.
It's just adding another gag.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's annoying about this is that there are characters that can just be summed up by this is their running gag.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes them quirky and that makes them fleshed out and it's annoying. And it didn't help that, Homura's was referenced again too.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no.
All right, Nick, let's do it.
Ah! Bone collection!
Bone collection is ready.
I wish. Can we just talk about the wrestling scene from the first Spider-Man film instead of this fucking series? Because this one clinches it. This is the chapter where it's just like, all right, you're not a comedic action series. This is just a gag manga with occasional random fight scenes thrown into it. And everything about it screams like, this is just a gag manga. There are ceaseless, relentless, off-color jokes in this. Everyone's an asshole. Name me a character that is admirable in this series. I fucking dare you. I dare you to name me one character in this series that you can point to and go, I kind of like them. That didn't get killed off horribly in the flashback in the first chapter.
Yeah, no, I guess you're I guess you're right.
Even Pyra, who had a little bit of humanity in the first two chapters because she had a goal and dreams, is just a goddamn asshole in this one.
She's jealous bitch now.
She's riding around on Kazami's brother, making him bark like a dog as she forces him to be her slave, lest his secret about dressing in a school swimsuit get out. She hears that Kazami's gone to school, so she immediately is like, I'm going to school too. Kazami is, guess what, talking about boobs with his friends. She shows up and is like, you dare cheat on me? I've got plenty of boobs. And she's like, what are you doing here? There is one joke that is at least not offensively bad. I don't think it's funny, but it's not bad. Where Kazami's brother shows up and is like, yeah, so this girl wants to attend school and I'll vouch for her. And so the principal's like, well, what's her relationship to you? And Pyra's like, listen, if you don't fucking tell them it's something that'll put me into this school, then I'm going to tell them about your weird perversion. And so he's like, she's my daughter. And the principal's like, how old is she? 19. How old are you? 21. Okay, that's kind of funny. But then the principal's like, I mean, this is way too suspicious. I can't do this. His brother takes out some money. Okay.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Isn't this a high school?
Yeah, I believe so. Maybe it's partially an exorcist school as well.
Maybe? I don't know. So
I might just be distracted based on the fact that the only two characters we know from the school are exorcists, so...
Yeah. Reno shows up as well as like, that's the girl from yesterday. Said, you said fiance instead of niece, though, and apparently she's your niece. And so, they're fighting over Kazami, and there are weird things because, like, Reno knows how many moles are on various parts of Kazami's body, but she doesn't know his birthday.
Yeah, I don't like what a weird gap in her knowledge. She's like, I know how many moles he has on his butt cheeks, but fuck, is he a May or a January? Like,
so they're gonna fight now.
Mm-hmm.
And Reno's like, well, if you're born into an exorcist family, then you'll have some innate talent. So if you're part of the family, then you've got to prove it to me. But little does she know, Pyra actually used one of her bones in order to summon not Nintendo, Switch with a V. And with that, it summons a double of her that Kazami can control in the fight like it's a fighting game. So they have a fight and they make really weird jokes during the said fight, including when Reno casts chains around her body and Pyra's like, oh, she's restricted my movement. Well, too bad. I enjoy being tied up. Okay. So Reno gets really upset when an observer says that Pyra is a better fighter than her, so she starts going berserk and they go crazy. Pyra's like, fight her. And Kazami's like, the school is going to be destroyed. Let me fight. No, let me go. And as a result of them fighting over the controller, the fake Pyra's head twists around 180 degrees. And Reno's like, ah, and faints. And Pyra's like, I won. Which prompts Kazami to smack her on the back of the head because he's not a big enough dickbag already. And then it's like, no, this gag manga has a plot. The Exorcism Federation headquarters is coming for you. And then Pyra's hair has started to turn from white to darker color, so it's a show that some of her powers are fading. I get the feeling that her color's going to change colors really fucking quickly if there's any goddamn justice in this world. And Kazami's got word that he's got to go and fight an A-rank yokai. And Reno's going on the mission along with someone named Akifuyu Abe that Pyra has heard before. So,
yep.
So, Chris, are we going to read this manga anymore?
Well, I don't really want to. Do you want to, Nick?
No.
Okay. But I do recall several months ago an agreement to bring Spy Family to the recap. There was a veto of some sort to bring any series into the recap that was necessary. I feel like Bone Collection might be necessary. Nick, I'm cashing in my money in the bank contract. If I had a briefcase,
where's John Cena to ruin the cash in where I need him?
This is why I wish I had a briefcase to open up.
If you had a briefcase, I wouldn't even be angry right now. Honestly.
I tried to find one. The closest thing I could find was a book bag.
You planned this?
Oh Yeah, the moment I read the first chapter of this series, I was like, this is fucking garbage. I'm gonna make sure we have to read this all the way to its 19th chapter conclusion. Because trust me, I'm going to go out on the record, and you can quote this all the time if this ends up being a success. This manga is fucking garbage. It's going to be over in fucking 16 or 18 chapters. There's no way this is a successful manga. But
if you end up being wrong about that, then like as soon as
it's just in here forever then.
As soon as Volume 1, debuts to like 3 million copies that same week, Rizu and Seikijo are just gonna have an 18-page long makeout in that chapter. Like by that point, we'll be into like Asumi's arc, and randomly they'll look over, and then it's like, oh wow, yeah, they're just like all over each other. Look at them. And like Seikijo will like look at them and very explicitly say, "We are not doing this for any sort of attention-grabbing stunt. I love her." Nick, you should buy Chris a pizza.
I get to enjoy a pizza while I enjoy the next chapter of Bone Collection. I can't wait. This quarantine's starting to 2020's turning around, Nick.
If we're gonna do this, I'm gonna have to decide which character is Macho Man. It's probably Pyra.
Oh.
All right. Oh, Mashle, chapter 100, chapter 52. I wish that Mashle would just get to 100 chapters. It would be nice to have that, assurance in my life, Chapter 15, Mash Van Dead and the Giant Forest Scorpion. Spoilers, there is a giant forest scorpion in this chapter.
Well, look, there might be one. If you blink, it's gone.
You'll never spot it if you're not looking closely.
It's like a Where's Waldo. You kind of have to be paying attention.
On some level, this chapter actually disappointed me. It's not a bad chapter, but Mash does not just punch this dude in the face eight more times. It was so satisfying last chapter. No chapter that features a particular moment that this chapter features could be called a bad chapter. But I just wanted to get that out there. I did want to see him just punch this guy 8 more times. An asshole. So the Mash, gets up from where he was sitting down waiting for the guy to get up. He's like, "Are you ready for number 3?" And immediately he's like, "This is bad. If he punches me again, I'll die. Gotta think. I need a plan. And suddenly a shadow has fallen over the both of them. And he looks up, and a giant fucking scorpion whose eyeballs are bigger than them has suddenly descended on both of them. And it goes... with its bizarrely human mouth. Just realized that. Anyway, he's like, "Oh, yes! A higher level forest scorpion is here. Now I can just make my escape while it and Mushroom Head are fighting." And the scorpion tries to attack, and Mash just kind of does something. I'm not sure what he does, but he throws his arm backwards, and the scorpion ricochets off a tree and goes flying into the air. Immediately. Done. And we're on chapter 6, and that's the last appearance of the giant forest scorpion in the chapter named after it. Mash apparently wasn't even looking, didn't even know what he hit, because he's like, "I'm busy right now. Sorry." So, again, the guy's like, "I earned 2 gold coins in my first year. It can't end like this." But Mash just suddenly goes, "Let's call it quits here. I feel kind of bad for you." And the guy just kind of slumps over. Then Mash looks at the girl who had, drawn Barrett into this whole situation. And she thinks, "I didn't think that Silva would lose. What do? I could be next." So she says, "Sob." There are no asterisks around that word bubble, so I'm going to assume she says sob.
Knowing this series, she probably did.
She goes, "I'm sorry. He made me do it, and I was scared, and I had no choice. I'm sorry. I'm such a terrible person." And Mash comes up behind her and hugs her from behind, says, "It's all right," gives her a big squeeze. And she thinks to herself, "So gullible." Then Mash says, "You see," locks his hands around the waist. German suplex!
It's such a... He gets the perfect extension on it, too.
With the bridge! Not since the days of Medusa. Has anyone pulled off a bridging German suplex so perfectly? And she is out. And Mash just says, I believe in equality. Now, I want everyone out there to understand. I think that I'm a feminist. Men should be allowed to punch women is one of the douchiest things that you can do. You have to understand, this is fictional, and Mash is a sociopath. Which is what makes this funny. So, Barrett looks on and is like, this guy's got some screws loose. And that was how class came to an end.
Yeah, they're like, and the session's over, guys.
Mash's friends catch up with him. Lemon observes that Mash is kind of beat up, and he's like, I'm fine. And so they're like, wow, you beat a Starstone Scorpion. Barrett kind of, seems to, slump and walk off by himself as he just kind of thinks to himself about what's gone on. And Mash seems to remember what the girl had said in criticism of Barrett. Oh, I really dislike hot-blooded wannabes like you. But before any of them can do anything, Lemon goes over to Barrett and is like, oh, you're really banged up too. Are you okay? And oh no, Barrett saw a cute girl. And so he's struck once again by Cupid's arrow, which flies through his eye. And I think he actually reacts to the fact the arrow went through his eye because he goes, ah!
Yeah, he actually goes, ah! Ah!
So, be like, what's wrong with him? Barrett seems to gather himself, and he says to Mash, hey, Shroomhead, I'm sorry for getting you caught up in all that. And thanks. Mash paused for a second, and he says, well, that's not like you at all. So Barrett starts screaming at him and insulting him instead. And asking if he wants to fight. So, what a bizarre friendship these two have struck up, basically.
Yep.
Lance says to Mash that, oh, I heard that you were targeted. A little bird told me. Well, Langdorm is out hunting for coins, and their sights are set on Adlerdorm, and that second year was probably in on that plan. They're a dorm made up of the upper crust and their cronies, and as you can imagine, they place birthright above all else. They'll do all they can to prevent us nobodies from getting to the Bureau of Magic. It looks like it's starting. The great war for the coins against Lang's elite, the Magia Lupus. And we get a shot of, oh, look, it's the Akatsuki. It's the Ten Espadas, people wearing creepy looking hats and robes. And one's got like a skull staff, and one's got crazy eyes, and one's got a...
Looks like a giant shield.
It might be a mirror, maybe?
Something, yeah. It's something huge.
Oh, look at these weird villains that they're gonna have to deal with. And Mash's response to this, as his friends look various combinations of worried and confused, is Magia Lupus. I used to make up stuff like that when I was 12.
I don't know who says okay then at the end, because it's very funny either way. I want it to be Lance, though, that he does this big, you have to understand, the Langdorm is coming for us. They do not want anyone that is low level of us to reach the Magic Bureau, and they're going to send all their might after us with the Magia Lupus. And he's just like, that name's kind of stupid. Like, well, okay then. Good talk, Mash.
Lance is getting used to Mash being an idiot. Yeah. So yeah, fun chapter. Still wish that Mash would have punched that guy 8 times.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah. Let's talk about Mission Yozakura Family. Mission 35, Library of the Dead.
Whoa.
I'm going to explain the premise instead of doing this in media res thing and then an explanation of where they are and then picking up the action again. So, we're getting back to the plot, where, of course, Tayo had gotten that optical storage device from Kurogao during that story arc a little while ago. Shion has a presentation, a briefing for him, saying that, after analyzing it, we found out that there was inside it the guest list for the Yozakura family wedding reception. For the ninth head, their parents' wedding. Most of the guests were everyday people, so this was probably meant to be viewed by regular society. For the Yozakura family, a wedding reception is just a regular occasion. The main issue is, Tayo, your parents' names are on the guest list. And so this is, of course, a big shock. First of all, this is classified data. How did they get this information? Also, clearly from this, we can conclude that there was some connection between the Yozakura and the Asano families before we were born. Taiyo is not incredibly shocked to hear this because he explains, I was kind of expecting something like this after Kurogao mentioned the data because he knew who I was. But besides that, I'm more worried about Mutsumi because she's very shocked from this. And Mutsumi is actually just like, Taiyo, we need to get a divorce, because she's immediately like overwhelmed by the guilt knowing that something has happened to his family because they were involved with the Yozakuras. And Taiyo's like, we don't actually know that. This is barely any information, so let's not jump to conclusions. And even if there was, something to that, this is all in the past. And the only reason I'm with you is because of you. So don't say you want to break up. And they have a sweet little moment, and Shion's like, get a room. Mission now, briefing.
Please.
Taiyo pulls one of his, I'm sorry for, trying to ask something selfish of you. Bokuju and Shion gouges him in the eyes like, stop that. You're part of the family. Be more selfish. So basically they are going to the Library of the Dead which is this secret faculty sponsored by the Spy Association, which gathers information on people who have disappeared. And so if he goes there, he could find out what actually caused his parents' deaths. But you have to be careful because the library is overseen by its caretaker, Mei-chan, who has extendo claws, and she'll punish anyone who makes even the slightest noise. She'll stab you. She'll stab you, but good.
Yep.
And if you make too loud a noise, she'll actually kill you. An hour goes by as Taiyo searches around. He eventually finds the file for his father, Asano Hide, and he's like, all right, he worked in the sales division. This is his wife, this is his son, this is his second son. He was killed on this date at 39 years, but there is no information regarding the cause of the accident. So he's like, damn it. But then he sees that there is this little indent in the tablet that he has picked up, and he realizes, wait a minute, that's the same size as the data sphere that I got. So, he inserts it, and it unlocks more information. He's like, it's also a key. So he learns that his family were disposed of by Tanpopo. He has no idea what that means. The thing that actually interests me the most about this is that Taiyo is listed among the people who were killed. So that's interesting. However, that moment after he observes this and he barely gets any access to that information, suddenly the screen blinks and it goes, unauthorized access detected, data will be destroyed, and he manages to barely throw it away before it explodes right in his face. And of course, that explosion draws the attention of Mei-chan, who's going to go and try and kill Taiyo. Shion is communicating with him with a radio and is like, you are not going to be able to fight her, so you need to run away. He uses his taser gun to shoot an outlet, overpower the electric grid somehow, and cause the lights to go out. That doesn't work. Mei-chan has really good hearing, so she just uses that in order to track him down in the darkness. Shion tells him to try and make an escape, but Mutsumi grabs the microphone from her and says, take off your earphones right now. So he's like, all right, he does, and Mutsumi cranks the volume all the way up and screams into the microphone, and because Mei-chan has very, very strong hearing, her senses are overwhelmed and she actually passes out from that. And so Taiyo is safe. And that's basically where the chapter ends. I much more enjoyed the actual briefing part of this chapter than anything that happened in the library, which is why I spent so much less time, comparatively speaking, talking about that. It's another quirky character in Yozakura family, big whoop. But I like seeing the interaction between the three characters as they were discussing information. And hey, we're leading to things that will actually potentially move the plot forward now. So yeah, that's good.
Plus, it's just like the idea of at least this one doesn't seem to have a weird obsession with Taiyo Mutsumi either. So
exactly. She didn't even say his name. She was just like, someone has disturbed my library, kill. And that was it.
That's pretty satisfying.
All right. Let's talk about the new Shonen Jump series. Time Paradox Ghost Rider.
Ooh.
Time Paradox. It's chapter 1, Jump through weekly time. I see what you did there. This is a series with art by Sunihiro Date. The last thing we saw from them would have been Cross Account, which was that weird I became Twitter friends with a celebrity thing.
Oh, yeah, that was terrible.
Well, Sunihiro Date is not doing the writing for this series. It's being done for a person by whom, from what I was able to determine in my research, this is like their debut in manga. Okay. So this is about a manga artist, an unsuccessful manga artist named Teppei is his name, I think. Like, I've got my notes for this. Teppei, yes. And he's 24. He's trying to get a manga in Jump, but his editor just keeps on rejecting every single thing that he submits. We see a little bit of him, in kind of his everyday life. He, helps to retrieve a balloon for a person when it seemed the balloon was way too high up, and he like fell out of a tree after he caught it. So, that's the kind of person that he is. He's always reaching up for something that seems unobtainable, basically. So he is submitting this to literally Shueisha to try and have it appear in Shonen Jump. There are going to be Bakuman comparisons at some point or another as we discuss this manga. It is inevitable.
I do love it, though, because so much of this chapter is like, Jump is strict. They don't just let any garbage through. You got to make sure you have a great premise, great characters, something new, something fresh, well-written, moving. All of it has to be in there. And we're 2 chapters removed from Bone Collection. And you're just I don't know what the standard's that high, my dudes.
Also, there's just this one editor, Kikusei, who is constantly looking over Teppei's work. He's just like, no, it's not good. Not gonna try and submit this to the meeting. It's not good. It's terrible. Teppei keeps on trying to barge. He's like, give me another chance. Will you take one more look tomorrow? I'll draw up another storyboard. And he's like, you're going to draw a new 47-page draft by tomorrow. And Teppei's like, I've got to do it. I've got everything running on this selection meeting. And he's like, fine. If I get a moment, I'll glance over it if you show up on time. So Teppei does this. He's like, I've got to do this. 3 days from now, the day after the selection meeting, I'm turning 25, and all the friends I made at school have already gotten steady jobs. I bet I'm the only one who's worried about making rent next month. Oh, to be 25 again. So he's like, how long can I just continue doing this, though? It makes sense because, like, you have to take a gamble every time you're trying to do this. And if he's literally not getting anything published by that point, then yes, he is approaching the deadline where, you can actually make a debut, as far as a lot of people are concerned. So anyway, he tries to look it over and he's like, yeah, I've done it. I've passed this time. I've made a good manga, I'm sure, this time. He manages to get there to have Kikusei to take a look at it. Kikusei looks at it and he's like, all right, there's nothing in this. There's nothing to this story. What do you actually find interesting in this? And Teppei says, well, you told me my characters were boring yesterday, so I tried to make the characters unique and quirky. And Teppei looks at Hiro and says, a character being quirky and a character being interesting are 2 separate things. And he's just like, this is not good. And, what are you trying to do by publishing manga? What is it that you can bring to manga that no one else can? And Teppei just says, look, I just want to make something that a lot of people enjoy. And Kikusei says something which is true, but very harsh, which is, if you try and make a manga for everyone, you're going to make a manga for no one. So if you just want to draw something and have people enjoy it, go back home and just bask in the adoration of your friends and family. That's my advice to you. And I'm not submitting that storyboard. Bye. So it's kind of a dick to him, but presumably Teppei's been bothering him for a long time with stuff that he's sick of reading. So Teppei walks home. It starts to rain. He looks inside and sees some umbrellas for sale. And he's like, if I were to buy an umbrella, it would cost me 5 days of my food budget. So he's, just working part-time jobs in order to have time to make manga. He's barely making ends meet, despite the fact that, as we learn, his mother back home is willing to send him money if he needs it, but he's too proud to accept it. He's been working hard ever since he left home to try and do this. He knows that his, friends that he went to school with in order to make manga, they're already ahead of him. And he's not even visiting home. His mom is asking him, "Can you come home for the holiday?" And he's like, "No, I've got to work a shift." And he's like, "No, I've got enough money, but no, yeah." He's letting his pride basically put him in this bad situation. Very relatable. But he's finally had enough. He gets back home after this latest rejection. It's raining heavily. He just collapses in his home, and he says to himself, "If I open my mouth and the words 'I quit' come out, then I'm going to quit." And so he takes a breath and he opens his mouth and he starts to say, "I quit," and then lightning strikes his timeshare place or whatever it's called. He's a tenant at a really rundown building, basically. He's co-op. He gets up and sees that his refrigerator and microwave are glowing with electricity. His first instinct is to grab a bucket of water and throw it on there. That'll work. And everything that was there has kind of melted together afterwards. His fridge is melted shut. The microwave is melted to the top of it. The little toy robot that his friend gave him has melted into it as well. And so he's like, "What is this? Is this some sort of sign for God? Why is this happening right when I decide to quit?" At that moment, the microwave dings, and he's like, "What the fuck?" He opens the door, and there is a volume of Shonen Jump inside. And so he's like, How, what? Am I hallucinating, basically? Did I accidentally put an issue of this in the microwave when I was so tired? So he looks at the magazine and he realizes it's dated for May of 2030, 10 years in the future. And so he's like, what? And he's like, "I know, I'm on candid camera. The cover is a fake, and there's just like someone is just pulling a prank on me." And he flips through and he's like, "I don't recognize any of the manga in this magazine. Is this for real?"
We all know One Piece will still be running. Come
Absolutely.
on. There's not a chance.
I don't recognize any of these manga except One Piece.
Oh, but One Piece is there. Thank God. My comfort blanket.
Carrot's still traveling with the Straw Hats, and she's still not called an official member yet.
She's going to join. Just you wait. After they get to Elbaf, the land of the giants.
So he sees on the cover, the cover manga is White Knight by Itsuki Aino. He's like, "Well, I've never heard of them, so I guess that there's a new artist who debuts within the next 10 years. He flips it open. He starts reading that first manga, and he goes outside and he just screams to the still thundering heavens, "It's amazing! It's so good! The characters, the concept, it flows perfectly. There's nothing that... It was such a perfect chapter, and I cried as soon as I read it." And he's just, he basically barfs out the entire premise in this one panel. I'm not going to bother reading it, but it's really good. And so he's like...
Well, he says it's really good. The actual description of it sounds very similar to a lot of things, but yeah.
I think that one of the best things that this chapter does is it does not actually show you White Knight. Because after this description, it cannot live up to any expectations that you give the readers.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, man. Oh, I got to go back and read it again. I left it on top of the fridge, and it's gone." He's like, "Well, where did it go? Where's the future jump?" Of course, there's no jump from the future. I just went crazy a little bit. But then he realizes, well, wait a minute. If I dreamt it or hallucinated it, it doesn't matter. That manga I just read is amazing. And he immediately starts drawing. And he's like, "I don't care if I just dreamed this up in a weird vision. If it came out of my brain, I need to put this down." And so he works all through the night, basically. He gets to the Shueisha building again. He's still like wearing the same clothes that he wore the previous day. And he calls up Kikase and he's like, "Hey, can you take a look at my storyboard? It'll only take a minute. I've got a really good one." And Kikase's like, "No, the deadline was yesterday." And, Teppei says, "Well, listen, if this doesn't work, I'll quit." And so Kikase just says, "Why is that my problem? Quit." Again, kind of a dick.
Well, I do kind of like that though when he's like, "Hold on, I'm gonna place the onus of my career on you."
Yeah.
He's like, "Look, if you're gonna quit, just quit.
Just quit. Yeah.
Don't make it dependent on my judgment."
It is understandable dickishness, basically. Yeah. And we haven't seen all of the meetings that they've had before that would make you go, no. He's totally right to say, go away.
Yeah. Stop calling me. Like
I'm
2 in the morning.
Work. I have other things to do. So Teppei goes for plan B. Breaking inside. Just runs past security, presents his manuscript to Kikase. Like, read it, please. It's a miracle. Kikase gets fed up and just smacks it out of his hands. The pages go flying. And he's like, your manga might as well be a blank stack of paper. There is nothing there in the page. And I've stuck with you out of social obligation. I don't want to see you again. I don't care if you think a miracle has happened. There's nothing that'll happen to transform you into a real mangaka from a talentless hack. This is serious business. The editor-in-chief arrives. And he's like, really? So, Kikase, you can just tell who has talent and who doesn't. That's something. I've been in the business 20 years, and I still can't tell. So I'm glad to see you've got it all figured out. I do like that, very sarcastic thing. So then things get weird. Yes, now the refrigerator and the microwave and the robot melted together and spat out a future manga, and now things get weird.
Yeah, things are crazy now.
Because he says, why did you go to such extremes? He's like, I'm just dreaming of being a manga. There's no point in trying tomorrow. And the guy's like, well, a crime's a crime. But the manga is not responsible for trespassing, so I'll read it. Besides, I liked your award winner that you submitted. So that's kind of a nice thing. It's like he remembers when he was in the contest years ago. That's cool. So he says, I don't think we can run this manga in a special issue. And Teppei's like, it's still not good enough. This one will go straight into Shonen Jump. It's astounding.
The light shining behind them.
And it's getting passed around. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. And Kikase finally reads it. He's like, this is yours, Teppei? He's like, yes, I made this. So, all right. They're like, it's going to be a hit. It's going to be an overnight success. I'm telling you, it's going to be the biggest thing in the world. So, yay, Teppei did it. And there are people who are like, yeah, congratulations. I'm sure we're going to work together and have a good time and stuff. And Teppei's like, I did it. I can finally see the light of day now. And so he travels back home in order to actually, make sure that he can actually do the best quality and stuff like that. He gets his old classmates to help out on doing, the system work and stuff. And believe it or not, my debut one-shot White Knight went up against the Weekly Shonen Jump lineup and came first in the reader surveys by a mile. Won what? Fuck Chainsaw Man. Fuck My Hero Academia. Fuck all of them. White Knight.
It was the best one. Everyone loved it.
Everybody loved it. So,
Oda's like, it was the week Luffy punched and defeated Kano. It's really weird, but this fucking White Knight was so good.
Oh, man. And that's why there's no One Piece in 2030. Oda's just like, in all my years, I've never done a chapter as good as the White Knight one shot. There's no point in trying anymore.
Yeah, he gave Sasaki his pen, and then he put on a little top hat. He's like, well, I must go. And then a little elevator enclosed around him, and he flew off into space. And there's a moment where you're just like, no, this sounds about right.
That's about right.
That sounds about right for Oda.
Oda's an alien, and manga come from the future. And Teppei closed out his narration by saying, but because I hadn't returned to Tokyo yet, due to wanting to celebrate with my friends back home, I still had no idea that what happened wasn't a dream at all, and that my microwave was continuing to spit out issues of Jump from 10 years in the future. So, however, then we cut over to the Kochi Prefecture, a little house in the mountains, and we get someone calling out to their daughter saying, I got you this week's issue of Jump. I'll just leave it at the door. Boom. And so the girl, Itsuki Aino, the person who in the future was writing White Knight, opens up the Jump and is like, what the hell is my White Knight doing in Shonen Jump? And she says, how dare you, Teppei Sasaki? to be continued. So the real author, of course, was out there because it was only 10 years in the future. So what's going to happen now? I will say there are some weird parts to this manga. I don't know how much of it's, meshes and stuff, doing a manga writing story with a sci-fi element of it comes from the future. But I think it will be interesting to see what happens between Itsuki and Teppei. The series is called Time Paradox Ghost Rider, so maybe that's going to be it, is that Teppei becomes her Ghost Rider or something, or she becomes his Ghost Rider or something like that. And if nothing else, it made me want to read the next chapter. So
yeah, there's interesting things. I'm very curious. I do like, because there is an element here about like how you have to make sure that the main character story is likable, and they do that because he isn't intentionally plagiarizing. He's like, wow, jump cape in the future, and then it's gone. He's like, wait a minute, I just had some crazy dream. So in his mind, he thinks he just dreamt it up. So yeah, he's not intentionally trying to steal anything.
What sounds more realistic to you?
Yeah, so like I get that aspect of it. I do like it for that. I'm kind of curious to see how he reacts when he presumably will eventually be confronted by somebody being like, hey, I'm that person from the future. Well, they wouldn't know that part, but I'm this person you stole my manga, and being like, wait a minute, that was the name because he did read the name too. So
yeah,
I definitely think there's some interest there. There's a small problem with it. Maybe this is just because times have changed for me. There's a level of like masturbatory quality here. Like, Jump is the paragon, like the holy light. Like, this manga shall go straight to Jump itself. And you're like, again, just 3 chapters for talking about Bone Collection. Yeah. Especially in a week where we're not super crazy high on most of the manga this week. So it's like, all right, I guess. But it's got an interesting premise. I'm excited for it for that angle.
Yeah, it's got that whole Yesterday, I think was the name of the movie, where everyone forgot about the Beelzebub one guy thing. Yeah. So, there could be an interesting character dynamic. I have no idea how the hell you would make like a long-running story out of this, but I guess we'll see what kind of ideas would be leading in that direction soon.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could play with it.
We'll see over the next 2 chapters if it's interesting. So,
yeah.
All right, Chris.
Let's talk, Nick, about We Never Learn. Question 158X equals Thumbelina Supercomputer Part 8. Nick, we doubted him, but I think Susui is going to tie it all together in a neat little bow. Let's see. Yeah.
Have you read this chapter yet?
Nick, I haven't read it yet. Let's find it.
Going in blind.
I just have faith. The Iruka one was so good. So basically, it's Sekijo, or not Sekijo, Ogata and Yuiga in Ogata's apartment, and the air conditioner is out, so they're just by a fan, and it's very, very hot. We get like a little flashback to Sekijo saying, hey, I'm going home for just a little bit. I need to have an honest conversation with my parents and talk about some things about the future. And Ghost Girl's like, don't worry, I will be there to also meddle in this relationship. So, the two of them, are going to leave. Sekijo basically says, though, thank you so much. You guys have been there supporting me this whole way. I'm not going to run away or make any excuses anymore. And then she goes up and whispers to Yuiga. She's like, all right, so it's time for you to step up to the plate. It's just going to be the 2 of you now. And then she leaves. So it is just the 2 of them. And we get a bunch of cheesecake shots about how sweaty and hot Ogata is. And Yuiga's like, oh, wow, it's so overwhelming. And he can't stop thinking about that intimate conversation they had last week about how Ogata was like, well, I'm here always. He's like, oh, I get so nervous. I can't even think around her anymore. She's just playing a game, right? There's no deeper meaning. Right? So they decide to go off for a walk. And Ogata is wearing what I can only describe as a dress where from the bust below, it apparently is sheer. I can't tell.
It's like a hybrid sundress and nightgown.
Yeah, we were like, all right. So they're going off walking.
That's, I mean, like, if you wear a light enough colored dress, then yeah, it'll have that silhouette effect. But it's colored gray in the manga, which implies that it's a darker color. So I don't know. I can only assume it is like, yeah, sheer from the waist down for some reason.
Yeah. So they go off walking. Yuiga is appropriately performing social distancing, but Ogata is an idiot and thinks that he shouldn't be doing it. Excuse me. Who should they run into, though? But everyone's favorite, Kirisu. Apparently her car broke down, so they help her move, and they talk like, oh, hey, how you guys basically doing? And they're like, yeah, we're back here in school. You know, it's kind of nostalgic. I guess it hasn't been that long since graduation, but, you know. And she's like, hey, you know, when we look back on the past, things that were normal at the time suddenly seem like precious treasures, you know? But that goes to the present, too, so you should savor everything and really take full advantage of how sweet it is to be young, you know? It's your summer vacation. Go ahead, you know, walk around the building and have fun. So the two of them go off walking, and there's a collage of all the different memories the two of them shared together, which is something that happened in the final chapter of Aruka's chapter as well. There was this big, like, kind of montage of all the moments that were shared. And this moment is equally as powerful, no doubt. I'm sure everyone agrees.
They're also, like, I guess because this has got to be a cultural kind of thing. They've changed their shoes when they went to the school. I believe it must be because they didn't want to mess up the floors because they've been cleaned. So they're like all wearing slippers when they go into the school building. So that's why what happens later.
So they decide to go into their old classroom, basically. And he's like, you know, since we first started talking, you were always so serious. She's like, oh, really? Well, you couldn't swim. And they're like, we kind of established like 3 chapters ago, neither of us could swim, but whatever. And she's finally like, oh, are you going to be teaching us today? And he's like, what are you role playing? She's like, yes, be my tutor again. Sexy tutor.
Over this desk right now.
It really kind of feels a little bit like that. And he's like, oh, okay, well, do you remember the fundamentals of essay, right? He basically just quizzes her on a whole bunch of questions related to literature. And he's like, wow, you know, she's really come a long way since where we first met. And he's like, all right. Yeah. And she's like, okay, next question. He's like, how did you know that I pretend to be lonely?
Not to be lonely.
Yeah, not to be lonely, sorry. And she says, well, all this time I've been watching you. I was thinking, today he looks tired. And today it looks like something good happened. Today he's got cute bedhead. Today he seems hungry. Today something seems bothering you. I've been watching you so I can tell. And he stares her in the eye and he's like, oh. She's like, oh, yeah, just kidding. Tee, how did that sound? Did your heart skip a beat? Which feels like a very un-Ogata thing to do. It feels like any of the other girls would do this, but if you try to establish Ogata as having a weird personality, she should be the one that doesn't immediately say something romantic and then like giggles away.
In your heartbeat pattern?
Yeah, something like that. Instead of her being like another girl who's like, giggle you, didn't that seem romantic, Tee? She's like, yeah, I told you, just a game. So they're walking down the stairs, and basically they have like an awkward moment where both of them try to speak at the same time. They're like, oh no, you talk. And Ogata slips, and she falls directly into Yuiga, very similar to how they did very early on in the series, where they basically kissed by like bumping faces into each other. And that would really hurt. I don't know. That would not be romantic. That would be very painful.
Just bash your teeth against someone else's. It'll be so romantic.
Yeah, just fucking headbutt somebody out of nowhere. She's like, oh, wow. It's kind of like that time. What are the chances of an accident like that happening? And Ogata starts to pull away. And then Yuiga reaches out and grabs her hands. And he pulls himself in. And the two of them embrace and kiss. And Yuiga says, I lose the game. I love you. I really, really love you. Oh, it's a tie. We both love each other. End of chapter.
So if we treat, because these 4 total, kind of extra arcs that we're getting are, but what if you ended up with this girl? Let's say that you set out with the, oh, well, why did Yuiga come to decide that he was in love with that person? This one answers the question with, well, because Yuiga and Ogata have always got along really well, and also, damn, Ogata's hot, isn't she? Look at her, she's all sweaty. Look at her trying these swimsuits. Look at them banding on this island together. Look at them with Seikijo and the... That's literally the only thing that I can think of in terms of this. Ogata said like, "Yeah, I noticed, how your emotions," and Yugo was like, "Oh," and that was it.
Like, so I actually do like the idea that kind of comes up halfway through this chapter of him like, wait a minute, how do you really know that I'm hiding something like that? And she's like, it's because I watch you. Because that's Ogata's whole thing. That's why she wants to learn more about this. She wants to learn more about humans. And she has this interest in somebody and she follows them. Maybe she doesn't have the best way of expressing it, but she truly cares about Yuega. And she knows everything. And once he realizes that, it is like kind of this awakening of like, oh, maybe I have feelings for her too. Feels like a moment we should have gotten 4 chapters ago. And then we had like 4 chapters to like have Yuega address how those feelings are. And because it's literally like what, 5 pages from when she's like, oh wait, I can tell, I watch everything about you. Yuega's like, I guess I lost the game, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, it's just one of those moments where you're like, man, there's just no, it feels so crammed into the last moment in the last like 6 pages of this arc to be like, oh, I lost the game, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like, all right, come on, man.
It seems as though Sasui was just, I really do have to wonder if they were like, hey, Sasui, Sensei, do you want to like, extend the ending of the manga a little bit more? Make more money? Sounds great. Okay, so we have this idea where you come with a different ending for each of the girls. Cool, I'll get started on them right away. Damn it, how do I do anything with Ogata? I know, I'll put her in cheesecake poses, and I'll do something with Seikijo instead, and also the ghost girl is there, and wow, that filled out 7 chapters. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been dunking on this arc for a while because it clearly has not held up the standard that was the Iruka one. But there's even a part of me that's like, maybe that's the situation that was proposed. The idea of like, hey, we want you to keep writing this. Why don't you do an alternate ending for each girl? Because again, that announcement like came out when the last chapter did. So maybe they were saving it so that you could digest the chapter as much as possible. But ideally, if you were saying, hey, any of these endings could be canon, you probably should have said that at the very forefront before Ruka's ending kind of started. So maybe they proposed that. And maybe this is Susu saying, ah, shit. All right, phone it in for Ogata. I need some time to figure out how I'm going to write the other 3 girls I care much more about. Because like this one really just doesn't have, like, look, there's parts of it that are romantic. And people have mentioned that the kiss they share actually does look very beautiful. It does have that elegance to it that feels like had any of the buildup to this point worked, it would have felt like a very passionate, very nice moment. But there's none. This is just like, I love you. I love you too. All right, cool. We love each other. All right, cool. We got that out of the way. All right, let's get to Fumito's arc or whatever. It's just like, it just doesn't have it. I know there's probably like another chapter and then, I don't know if they do an epilogue or something like that. But, I mean, there was nowhere near the satisfaction of getting to this point that there was with the Iruka arc. Like, I understand there's different preferences to different people, but I don't know if even if you were a huge Ogata fan, you were just like, oh, this was just as satisfying.
There was a point early on in We Never Learn where I thought that Ogata was like probably the most interesting and entertaining of the girls in the series. And partially because, Asumi came along, and partially because Iruka became a much more interesting character, and Fumio became a much more interesting character, and all that stuff. She really kind of fell behind. But even so, over the course of the series, you got to see some different sides of her, got to see how her quirks were kind of evolving and stuff. But like late game, I was really getting kind of sick of her weird like approach to things. Literally, like at the moment where she realized she was in love with Yuiga, it was like they could not decide if she was going to be a robot who was learning what human emotions were, or if she was going to just be a girl like she comes across in this ending. And I don't think that that her character development actually carried through into her feelings for Yuiga most of the time. There were a few moments that I thought were good after that point, but like I hated that chapter where she was like, you have figured out what 12.5% of my physical differences are. But And then it came to this, and literally she just doesn't seem like herself in this entire arc to me. And so if I had been someone who really wanted to see Rizu end up with Yuiga, I don't know if this would have been satisfying to me, because it's not like Rizu ended up with Yuiga. It's a girl who looks like her and kind of talks like her sometimes did.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a level of it. Yeah. No, I get you. As I said, there might be another chapter to this to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Probably getting close to the end of it. All right, Dr. Stone.
Time to get stoned.
Z equals 150. Righteous science user.
Speaking of sheer nightgowns.
Seriously. You girls need to wear shorts. So, yeah, there's that color page with Homura and Kirisame being all sexy, and then Suika's like, I'm here too, to judge you for looking at them. Everyone is thinking about the fact that, hey, there seems to be a science user, and they, shot up our frickin' boat, so they're talking about that. Senku concludes their science is a bit more advanced than ours because, they have a machine gun. So, strong logic there. And of course, Ryusu's like, yeah, and also they want to kill us. However, as they're kind of just going down the river, suddenly Ukyo realizes there's an engine somewhere behind us. And they're trying to think, okay, is someone pursuing us? Kohaku says, I mean, I've been watching behind us, and I have not spotted a thing. There's no other boat on the stream, so nobody could catch up with us. But Ukyo, of course, realizes that their pursuer is not on the water. It's a plane! And sure enough, we pan up to see a freaking kind of insect almost like biplane swooping down towards them. And Senku is so shocked to see this that he actually temporarily misses Taiju screaming at him to get his attention. So a fight breaks out, a firefight. The mysterious new person pauses in their flyby to light a cigarette and then sticks their hand and part of their head out of the cockpit with a machine gun to blah, 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 across them. Yo tries to shoot the gun back, but of course it's completely pointless to do so. Senku comes up with a quick plan. He mixes up some chemicals and then screams over to Kirisame, hey, you've got the best throwing arm, so put it to use. I like that Chrome basically immediately figures out what she's going to need before she actually calls for it, because he starts getting a rope with a loop on it handy and tosses it towards her right as she's actually asking for some. So she swings the chemical mixture over her head, throws it straight towards the plane. It gets sucked into these like vents on its sides. And the pilot immediately realizes, the engine's kind of gotten knocked from this. Not bad. So the plane crashes into some trees as the pilot just kind of jumps to safety. No parachute needed.
No.
They're a badass. The pilot's mask cracks and splits open, and we hear a voice over some sort of radio say that was acetylene gas. It's harmless to people, but it can stall an engine very, very easily. So it was a very elegant way of bringing down the aircraft. So the pilot starts to say, it's like, it's a pyro something or other. I think I learned about this. Yeah, pyrophoric. All right, fine. They say, all right, I got it. And we get a good look at their face, and it is not Frank Castle.
No. Fortunately not. Maybe next time, though.
I would say effeminate-looking face, but I've learned from this series, I'm not going to draw any conclusion. Until I hear the words come out of someone who knows this person's mouth say if they are a male or a female, I'm just going to say, like, them. Yeah. So...
they seem to have a slight undercut. It's a very unique hairstyle where, like, they shave up to, like, here, and then they let the rest of the hair grow out. So, There you go.
So they light another cigarette, and the pilot says, now we know that our enemies have a sharp-witted science pro just like you. We cut away from them, and the rest of the chapter is Senku and Risu going, their plane crashed. We're going to go take it. And then they do. And that's basically the rest of the chapter. They just, they chop up a bunch of wood to use as a raft, and they just haul the plane with them down the stream. And, achievement unlocked, busted aircraft acquired. So
they did it. So this is interesting. I'm kind of curious to know more about this character we met. I feel that this is a very unique individual. Like, I want to kind of know more about them because this kind of could set the precedent of what not only this next arc is going to be, but potentially all of these arcs going to different places. Like, I basically want to see the caliber. So, like, it was very interesting when we were dealing with Tsukasa, and then Ibarra managed to, like, really become a very intimidating force by the end. If this is our antagonist, I want to kind of see more about them and really experience them. They've had a pretty interesting showing so far, so I'm very intrigued to know more about them.
I like their general attitude. They're not really shocked by anything. And even when they lose their plane, they're just like, all right.
Oh, well, jump out here.
And I also really like the aesthetic to all their tech, the kind of insectoid appearance to everything. Except for the machine gun, which is a fucking machine gun. So
can't do it with everything.
Chainsaw Man! All right, it is chapter 69.
Nice.
Shining power. Denji has just set himself on fire and attacked Santa Claus. Yep. And Santa Claus manages to knock Denji away after a moment. He is still on fire. He is doused in gasoline, so of course he is. And Santa Claus says, even after deepening my wisdom with the power of darkness, I can't comprehend the behavior of fools. Denji says, I ain't no fool. I watch educational TV every day.
Yep.
Okay. However, he has also split off one of his chains from one of his chainsaws and has managed to wrap it around Santa Claus, almost like a string of barbed wire. Denji is still screaming from the fact that he is on fire, but he has tied them together, so he just, lunges in and keeps attacking her. Santa Claus says, I'm just going to keep distributing my pain across the other dolls, uses a bunch of arms to kind of throw her away, and Denji's like, hey, your regeneration's slowing down because of light power. Santa throws him against the wall. A bunch of dolls come bursting through the wall and grab at him and start stabbing him with their blade arms. And Santa Claus says, this is a fitting death for a dog who ignorantly wags his tail for Makima. Now stay still and burn. Denji reacts by biting into one of the dolls and drinking their blood to regenerate. And he's like, with light power! It's not light power at all. You drank their blood. The puppets knock him down, just dogpile on top of him. Santa Claus says, please hurry up and die. I'll let you see Makima soon enough. Denji pulls on the chain, and they start tug-of-warring with it. He's just trying to pull her towards himself as he's held down by puppets. More puppets jump in to try and pull back against the chain. It's so weird. So, tug-of-war is going on. Eventually, one of the puppets drives a car into Denji, and
I think it's specifically Kobeni's car, too. I think that's her car.
So the car blows up on him. Denji emerges from the fire and keeps pulling on the chain to pull Santa Claus towards him. And Santa Claus says, why won't you die? And Denji says, it's cool, you're all working together to kill me because sharing is caring. But you know what? If Makima dies, I don't get to go on my trip with her. And he pulls her in even closer, kicks through Santa's body with his foot chainsaw. It's a really cool 2-page spread. And then he picks up the car, shouts, shining power, and drops it on her, and it explodes. And there's fire everywhere. I really needed this chapter, Chris, because so much this week was, well, I didn't really like it. I didn't care for this. I was kind of disappointed by this. And you know what? Any fight scene can be improved with people picking up cars and throwing them at each other.
Yeah.
So Thank you, Chainsaw Man, for giving me stupid joy in my life.
I'm very impressed with how you recapped this chapter as well, because I have no fucking clue what happened this chapter.
My microphone has peaked so many times.
No, I mean legitimate. So I actually really wasn't a huge fan of this chapter. I had a ton of time telling you what's happening, just because everything's dark. I was like legitimately. I was like, oh, that's what's. It was so hard for me to read this chapter because Chainsaw Man already kind of has a rough art style, which I enjoy. But then you add on to it. Well, all the scenes take place at night, so everything's dark. And then let's add a layer of fire on top of Chainsaw Man. You're like, all right, fuck, I'm going to have to start deciphering some shit. There's still a couple panels. No idea what's happening in them. I'm just like, all right, let's go. I'll just keep on moving there. So I still like it. It's still fun. And I do love Denji's attitude here. But this was definitely a chapter where I was like, fuck, man, I'm going to need to watch the anime if it ever gets an anime because I have no idea what happens. It seemed very cool. But I had zero clue.
Usually I'm the one who has trouble telling what's going on in Chainsaw Man. So the fact that I could follow this one perfectly, I guess, definitely contributed to my enjoyment of it. So.
and now for the best chapter.
And we are not ending on a high note, guys. We have 2 chapters to go, and I hated both of them. So. Promised Neverland. Chapter 177. Mother, won't you let that demon's hand?
Won't you murder me? Redemption through death, mother.
We're lazy, but it's what we're doing. Oh, mother!
Oh, never mind.
That's a great song, by the way.
It is good.
I learned about it. Guess what? On Mother's Day several years ago. I was like, I have to find out what that song is. And I was like, that is the perfect Mother's Day song, even though it's not.
I know of it from, it was either Guitar Hero 2 or 3. It was in one of those. It was a really good song.
Great guitar song, yeah. So, Isabella has intercepted the claw attack that was intended for Emma and whatever kid she was protecting. The demon who has stabbed through her body is like, what are you doing? You're trying to act like a mother now? Won't make up for the fact that you've done all this time. You can never become a mother. And Isabella's like, I know, but I don't care about that. I won't let you lay a finger on the children. And the demon's like, I can't get my hand out of her body for some reason. So everyone's like, okay, let's kill this guy. Ray shoots it.
I forgot.
Deflected by the helmet.
I forgot how he dies. Some dude just walks up and cuts.
So Ray's like, all right, I've got to take closer aim in order to kill this guy. But Gilda's like, if you shoot now, it'll impact Mom's wounds. Fortunately, when the other demon comes in and cuts his head off with a fucking glaive, it rocks his body way less than being shot in the head would have.
They're like, excellent. The perfect way to ensure the body is not disturbed at all. Instant decapitation with a heavy object.
Decapitation! So, the demon gets his head chopped off.
How worthless this exchange is. Just recognize, Isabella, Mom, is attacked by a demon with no name, and the person to kill that demon is another demon with no name.
This is what happens when you put the only demons that you care about and are still alive over in the capital where they can't help. Like, even if one of the mothers had, like, grabbed a glaive from one of the demons and done this instead, that would still have been better.
Yeah.
Like, she would have had no name either. Don't care. Would have been better.
Everyone's correct. They're saying that the demon's not dead. It does, the core wasn't destroyed. So
because his head flies off and he goes, damn it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, arrest that headless man.
It's still, it's the purpose of still, what was it that stopped this demon? Is another nameless demon. Like, it's just this exchange. Because, look, I guarantee this motherfucking demon is not going to show up again. Like, it's effectively killing this character anyway.
So it's even better if in the next chapter we get a little recap. It'll be like, we held a funeral for Isabella. Mom, and the demon who killed her, whose name was Smeggy, was sentenced to...
with Lord Dub Dub. He was laid to rest.
Fortunately, Lord Dub Dub.
Wait, he was a lord? That seems like a prestigious title.
That's just some random guy.
Oh no, he's Loomis's other brother.
When we thought Loomis had died, actually his clone went off.
So it's split. It's like there was a Loomis and then there was a nobody called Dub Dub. Like that's all right. Let's just let it happen.
Okay. So, Mom is... They have a funeral, basically. Before, everyone's gathered around her. She's on her deathbed. Blood is dripping everywhere. And they're like, you've got to hang on. Is anyone going to try to perform first aid? I mean, like, a lot of you guys were having to do to rough it. And where I was like, no, we've got no medical supplies anywhere. So, but Isabella just says,
we used them all saving Chris.
So like, are you okay, Emma? And no one else was hurt? No, we're all okay. And Isabella says, I'm sorry. And she thinks to herself, I was planning to live and go to the human world. Sorry for taking the easy way out. They're like, we'll save you. Don't die. And Isabella reaches up and she grabs Emma by her face and she goes, squishy, squishy. Oh, that would have been better than what actually happens. Yeah. Emma says in narration, at first I was terrified. Why? How come? We couldn't understand when they found out that Isabella was working against them. Next, we couldn't forgive her. We suspected that Mom was the same as Crone, who just wanted to live in the best way. We saw her as an enemy, as someone to defeat. But once we got outside, all we remembered was how kind she was. And I finally figured out why. It's because her kindness and love were all genuine. Now, I know that that is actually the truth, because we have seen this from Isabella's perspective. We know that she did actually legitimately care for the children, and she thought that the only thing that she could do for them was just have them live in comfort for the first 12 years of their life before shooting them off to death. We know that about her. What has she done to convince Emma or anyone else of that? Nothing, because they barely talked before this happened. And it really makes me think that as soon as they left the farm where this woman was keeping them captive in order to be fed to fucking monsters, that they were just suffering from like delayed freaking
Stockholm syndrome.
Delayed Stockholm syndrome. And they were like, well, I miss Mom now that we've left her.
She was so good to us, and definitely all of it was genuine. Like, again, we know that's true, but for them, wouldn't there be some level of like, wouldn't they doubt, like, was it all an act? Oh.
Like, I mean, because we saw that whole, because this was established back when the kids first escaped, how Isabella actually, like, felt about a lot of them. And then, like, nothing was done with her for, like, 100 chapters after that point. And now you're giving me this. So, Emma thinks about this, and then she says, we still love you, Mom. We all love you so much, Mom. I don't love her at all. I've been getting my fingers broken every day because of this bitch.
Never made one good sandwich in her life.
Just shut up for now, Phil. Well, you're our only
No one tells me to be quiet.
Nobody puts Phil in the corner.
I'm an important character.
So they're like, don't leave, Mom, no! And Isabella's crying, and she's like, I want to live. I want to live and atone for what I did to them. So does everyone else, but the writer decided this was better for some fucking reason. And she's like, I can't speak. I can't move. My sight is fading. Please, a little more strength. Just once more. The strength, the hug my children. And she manages to kind of wrap her arms around the group as they cluster around her, and she says, I love all of you. And they're like, we love you, Mom, Mom! And then she calls for Ray, her actual son. And so Dawn calls over to Ray, whom I will say that as I was watching this unfold, I was like, Ray's not in any of these pictures. It feels like he should be.
Yeah, like, there were definitely a moment where I was like, did I, like, vividly forget some scene where her and fucking Ray interacted? Because I feel like we definitely should have gotten something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's happening here.
So she calls Ray over to be right next to her face so that she can say to him, I'm sorry. And she does not say, but she thinks, I couldn't dote on you. For 12 years, I made you live a life you wanted to curse. I love you so much. And then she just says, take care of everyone. So she didn't even say, I love you to him, I guess.
Yeah. Well, she said, I love you to everybody.
Yeah.
But then quietly, wink, wink, especially you.
Yeah. So Ray starts to cry, and everyone's crying as Isabella's eyes close. And the last page is a flashback to when Ray and Emma and Norman were all much younger, and she was, kind of looking after them as they were all going outside to play. She says, go have fun. Oh, this chapter would have been fine if it had stuff happen beforehand that justified it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you could take this completely unedited and then just stick in like a good 5 or 10 chapters or so of Isabella like doing stuff with the group and have a few conversations with them here or there, where they actually make proper amends so that they are justified in thinking this about her. Because dramatic irony is a thing, and just because the readers know this about Isabella doesn't mean that the kid should automatically know it about her. Or like there should have been some sort of justification for like, despite everything we still knew, like there should have been something to at least carry across that point and state it strongly, as opposed to, but it was really lonely out in the wilderness and we missed having mom to clean up our shit for us, and so we loved her, I guess. So it really comes across as like that little moment of narration by Emma made everything worse, honestly, than it would have if nothing had been said in that moment. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap things up on a high note. Let's talk about Black Clover, page 250, Charmy versus Hobbit.
Oh boy, another fight.
Yep, and it's with our favorite character, Charmy. Everyone loves her. So she's flying in because she says, "I'll never forgive anyone who harms this kingdom's nature and its food." And
it's very well established.
I need
the nature and the food.
Yep. Yeah. I need to go back. I want to analyze how many lines of dialogue Charmy has that does not directly mention food or Yeah. And I want to see what the percentage breakdown is of lines of Charmy that are just her talking about food.
Get back to me after you've read all 250 chapters of Black Clover then, buddy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I just said I would like to. In a world with more time, which I have almost all of now. So, hey, who was there? But Halbit, basically, she's a girl who has hair magic. And she's like, but, Lord Potroff, he protected us. He's down. He doesn't even get, like, the big thing from before. So, is it an L? Is it Halbit? Actually, I was reading it as an I. So I guess Halbit is her name. And Charmy shows up. She's like, hey, what are you doing? And Charmy's like, or Halbit's like, oh, what an unsightly butterball. Because she sees Charmy and she's like, oh, she's all big and everything like that. And she thinks back to all the great times she's had with all these animals and this village. And most particularly, Lord Potroff, who is the dude who looks like the grass gym leader from the new Pokemon games, basically. And she's like, oh, never forgive you. So she summons her big sheep. And Halbit starts using her hair magic. And this is a moment where I was like, you know what? Because we, kind of harping on the fact that like they were like, oh, but Clover Kingdom's where they have all the weird magic. And I was like, you know what? Hair magic, skin magic, eye magic. Maybe their whole like Spade Kingdom just has like a body magic thing. And I was like, oh right, Lord Zeno has bone magic. Oh wait, no, hold on, gravity magic. And then there was the one, rock dude that fought at the very start. Never mind, that theory fell apart real quickly. So they basically have a fight.
From when you eat rocks.
Yeah, when you eat rocks, it's like rocks are part of your body if you're the thing. And she's basically like, our magics are like, their affinity for one another for somehow. So they can't defend one another, but hers kind of can. So she has the advantage basically in magic powers.
It's
So
really weird because she says, we slip through the other's spells, but my hair magic can defend me. Your cotton magic can't protect you. And we see this happen, and no explanation is given for why.
I assume the assumption is her hair can't hurt the sheep made of cotton, but it can actually physically hurt the real body of Charmy. That's what I presume is meant to be expressed there.
But so her hair is winding around, and we see it pass through Charmy's giant cotton sheep thing, and they're just, passing through each other. But then the sheep tries to punch her, and she summons a barrier of her hair and blocks it. So...
Well, Nick, if you remember your Pokemon type matchups, Cotton has always been weak against hair magic. It's always been ineffective, so...
so you're telling me it's a difference. It's a matter of like offensive effectiveness versus defensive effectiveness.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that hair magic is half as effective against Cotton. It's just that Cotton does no damage to it. But if you could remove that vulnerability, Cotton would be just as strong. It's kind of like fighting types and ghosts. Like if you hit them with a foresight, you can hit that ghost just as powerful. It's just that level of like you gotta have foresight. Who the fuck runs that? I'm just gonna switch out to a psychic type or dark type or something. Come on now. All right. So,
no more questions. Gotcha.
Basically, they're just like, oh, she's getting attacked. Halbit's just kind of insulting her, like, oh, that chunky little body of yours, it can't avoid my attacks. Eating is ridiculous. All beauty needs is nutrition because I'm beautiful and I am strong and my nutrition is properly managed and you're an ugly fat. I don't even want to look at you. So the way Charmy, of course, defeats this person who's body shaming her is to become conventionally attractive. And then devours her alive, I think. She summons her wolf magic that cooks her into a stew and I guess eats all of her hair. I guess that's what's happening. And then Charmy just punches her a shit ton. And it's a real win for body positivity across the world.
When you put it like that, it's even worse.
Look, I know there's a lot of people really like Charmy. She's one of their favorite characters. I'm not a fan of her, so I'm just it's not an exciting chapter for me. And I'm already very tired of these fights.
Yeah, that's the way it comes down for me. It doesn't matter who it is, really. Yeah. The only one that I would have stood up for is if Zora suddenly showed up and I was like, oh, he's here, he's back to save us.
Well, we're gonna get at least one more because they mentioned 4 of the 5 Guardians were defeated, so presumably there's one more person, and we don't know where Zora is, so maybe he is one of these people that's over here. I don't know.
It's just a matter of it comes down to it's just chapter after chapter of people I don't care about fighting people I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it was a little bit more interesting when Luck's fight had a little bit of build up and it built to a proper crescendo after seeing how his training actually paid off. And then it was just and also Leon learned stuff.
Yeah.
And also Charmy punched a person. And so these 2 chapters back to back are I'm sick of this. At the very least, it's not, 4 to 5 to 6 chapter long fights between somebody I don't care about and somebody I've never seen before. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next time. But that's it. Ending the recap on a high note.
All right, that is going to do it for Week Manga Recap this week, everybody. Favorite chapter, an MVP, Chris.
Favorite chapter for me was Mashle, Magic, and Muscles. I really, really enjoyed that chapter. I thought it was a ton of fun, and it's probably the one I enjoyed the most, definitely.
All right, mine was Chainsaw Man, but of course we had that disagreement over the ability to determine what was going on. So understandable that it's not yours.
Yeah, and I totally because the audience picked Act Age and Chainsaw Man as their favorites. I mean, Act Age I don't quite get, but Chainsaw Man I get that. It was for me. I had issues with it, but I still really like the premise of it a lot. So.
Character of the week, MVP, rather, can we just go ahead and say it's Daybreak?
Oh, yeah, it's Daybreak. Who did not win the audience at all. I only saw 1 or 2 votes for Daybreak. Everyone was much more interested in Tokoyami from My Hero, which I get. But
he ran away. Bravely ran away. Good job, Tokoyami.
Yeah, come on. Daybreak was...
Also he saved Hawks' life, whatever.
Yeah, that's very cool. But Daybreak's
an idiot. Look at that.
That's stop there. Daybreak's an idiot, so I have to vote for it. As a fellow fool myself, I feel obligated. When you see full representation in media, you have to support it where you can.
We should open up we should just sign off by naming ourselves after some sort of counterpart to our rivals or something like that.
Yep. Who are our rivals?
Well, for me, it's Bleach. So
Ammonia.
Yeah, there you go. Or,
and for me, it's Success. So I'm Failure Man.
Rivalry is Success.
My eternal rival is Happiness. So I shall be Sadsack.
Whenever someone feels a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, I feel another pang.
Together, we are Ammonia and Sadsack. That's our tag team.
We are Ammonia and Sadsack. 2, 3, 4. Thank you everyone for joining us for Week Manga Recap. Smashcast at TV/Royalty, Twitch.tv/Royalty. Live broadcast goes on Wednesdays, sometime around 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Follow us for updates, and so you can tell exactly when we're going to start the show at WMR Podcast, at Royalty, at Nick F. Time on Twitter. Check out past episodes at weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. If you want to send us Q&A stuff for our Q&A episodes, ask us questions, suggest future manga for us to read. Follow along with the weekly discussion of the manga and also just other general discussions that go on. Discord server. Join that. That is where you can also find the Google spreadsheet that keeps track of basically everything that goes on, everything that you need to know if you want to know if we've covered a series, what series we're thinking about looking at, what series is coming up. The Google Doc is maintained by Ninja X3i, and you can find it through the Discord as well. Special thanks as well go out to Steve Mann, our target artist, Infamous Planet for the frame for the visual version of the podcast, and Milo Jack Stillitz and Wizdale Cheddar for the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. That is going to do it, everybody.
Yep. Get ready, guys, for next week, where we're going to be talking about Bone Collection again. It's coming. It's in the recap, guys. And can I note, I'm not going to lie, there was a small part of me that did it, that used my veto in the bank contract exclusively on the hope that this manga lasts till October so I can call it Bone Collection.
It's already Bone Collection!